Well, greetings everyone, and welcome to the Sports Crib. This will be our last show until New Year's. Hoping some of our guys show up. Say Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, or Happy Holidays, Kwanzaa, whatever it is you celebrate this time of year. But Let's get all our little commercial business out of the way here. As you can see, it's the Sports Crib, home of the Sports Crib Network. You can subscribe and donate on our Cash App, $JEK3. And we are also on YouTube and Facebook. So let's kind of get right down to business here. I do see Reggie is here in the queue. All Christmassy and whatnot.
How's it going, my friend?
How you doing there, Reggie?
Always good, man. Always good.
Okay. How's the weather down there in Atlanta, man?
Freezing. It is freezing down here officially. It is cold, man. It's cold down here.
Well, don't worry.
Roughly near the 30s, but not, I understand it's not, it's California frigid, but New York summerish, I guess, depending on where you are in the country.
There you go. Moving from Pittsburgh, I've experienced that. Believe me. I do see Dave is here, so let's get Dave up here in the queue. Happy holidays to you, Dave. How is everything down there in Maryland?
Doing okay. How about for you guys? You guys ready for Christmas?
Oh yeah, man. Ready to rock and roll.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, I'm already got my spot lined up on the beach. I figure, maybe I'll get there a little early, probably be about 60 that, Christmas. I think we're due to be in about 78, I think, somewhere around in there for Christmas. So
nice.
Yeah.
Very, very nice, man.
I was just hey, you got to enjoy it, man. I remember, when I was back east and, Christmas, like kids wanting the snow and everything, now, as many people have heard me say, the only time I want to see snow is when my cable goes out. And now that I'm streaming, I don't want to see it at all.
Right.
So, fire sick. I'm telling you, they don't even have to worry about that, all that stuff anymore. But anyway, I saw some pitiful football this weekend. We'll talk about it later on during the program here. Jeffrey Fan will come and we'll talk some more about what's happening in the ACC. Hopefully Don will show through. And has anybody seen that Texas schedule that for their first year in the ACC?
Yeah, have the 14th easiest schedule, right?
Yes.
In the SEC, right?
In the SEC, and here comes Mr. Carroll. So let's see. There's Mr. Carroll. He's here. So Bill, how's the weather up in your neck of the woods, Chicago?
It's been in the 20s.
Oh man.
Yeah, Reggie. It's 10 degrees.
It'd be worse. My little 30 degrees down here. I thought I was rigid down here. School's out.
And I don't think you quite have those Chicago winds either.
No, we don't really contend with those down here.
Yeah. Probably don't get a lot of snow either, I'm guessing.
No, man. If we can see it, the thought of snow will have schools out and stores cleared out down here. That's how it goes in Atlanta.
Yeah, that's how it is where I grew up. I remember we got like 2 or 3 inches one time in Virginia Beach, and they stay in your homes.
Right, state of
emergency. Spend this time with your loved ones.
Well, while everybody's in such a jovial mood here, Dave, let's get Sue's Merry Christmas corner out of the way.
Yes, the most awaited segment of the show.
Yeah, she has a feel-good story. So
nice.
Here's from Sue. Feel good pre-Christmas story of the week has to be the PNC Golf Championship held this past weekend, which had professional golfers pairing up with family members.
Ah, yeah.
There's a lot of highlighted moments with the Woods clan, Tiger, Charlie, and daughter Sam on the bag. Annika Sorenstam and her middle schooler tearing up the course, and many others. But a really good story was Lee Trevino. Trevino, 84, calls the PNC Championship his major, and he talks about it all year.
Wow.
He's played in every edition dating to the inaugural event in 1995 when 10 major winners gathered with their sons. He's assumed the role of the field's elder statesman, which has evolved to feature 20 major champions, including women such as Annika Sorenstam, and their relatives competing for the Willie Park Trophy. There's a wait list just to get in the field. This year, Lee Trevino played with his 31-year-old son from his third marriage. Lee never knew his father and chose to treat his kids as he knew life was for him. Absent parent, excessive drinking, loud, semi-abusive behavior, or he simply ignored them. He changed with his third marriage and has tried to make up for lost time with his older children as well. A lesson he learned from Jack Nicklaus, who taught him after a round one day to not forget your family and not just be a father, but be a dad as well. Jack refused to do an extra practice with Lee and took him instead to watch Jack's son play in a high school football game.
Yep.
Until then, Lee had never considered attending any event of his children other than graduation. That changed after that night. It seems like after watching the warm relationships the golfers had this weekend, whether playing with their kids or an older parent, that they got the lesson a little earlier than Lee did, probably thanks to Lee sharing his experiences and mistakes. So that's Sue's Corner.
Nice, nice.
I think it's a pretty cool story. We actually were watching some of the matches. You know, we had the TV on in the background. That was kind of cool to see everybody playing with their relatives.
Yeah, it's always good to have good family stories on the sports crib as well as in life. A lot of families, like you said, Lee had his third wife before he decided that he it was his kids were a little more important than just graduation day. So yeah, that's a very, very good story there, Dave. Let's take a quick poke around here, see what's going on. Cody Bellinger seems to think that he's going to be the next guy to grab the bag. And this is as a hitter. Most of the other guys we're talking about are pitchers. But he's seeking $200 million. What do you think there, Reggie? You're a baseball guy, a little bit.
I think that's a bargain compared to what Ohtani got right there. You know what I mean? It's like that's basically the tax on what Ohtani got, basically. So I mean, that's pretty good. If you're going for the bag right about now, and you can put anything against a backdrop of the $700 million that the Dodgers just gave Ohtani, now's the time to try your run at it, man.
What do you think there, Bill?
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming, unless we're talking about $200 million per year, I would agree that if you're getting multiple years of someone who's a top 5 player, maybe even top 4 position player in the league, let's say he wants say that $200 million is for, like, let's say for 4 years with a team option for a 5th. 10 years from now, he was saying, wow, what a bargain. Because decent players will be going for that in 10 years. Guys who are okay, solid players. Like guys you don't feel too bad about running out there on the lineup. Baseball is going to, once again, teach your kids to play baseball. But we're going to see the top tier getting deals that will all be above $500,000 for 6-7 years, right? That'll be the norm pretty soon for top tier players. Before you know it, there's a good time to be a pretty darn good baseball player because the next tier down, they aren't superstars. They're guys who go to maybe a couple of all-star games in their careers. Solid. You feel good about them. They hit 287, 22 home runs, 91 RBIs, an OPS of about, 811. Field their position well. That bunch of guys who have 12-year careers are going to, in that 12-year career, clear a cool $480 million. Right?
Unbelievable.
Yep. Nice. Teach your kids to play baseball. I mean, not everybody can be Ja Morant. Not everybody can be LeBron. Not everybody can be Kyler Murray or Patrick LeVon Mahomes II. Teach your kids, and once again, Mahomes grew up playing baseball. But teach your kids to play baseball. In fact, he probably should have played baseball. He's making decent money in football. If he were us, say he stuck to pitching. Oh, sweet God. You imagine the money he'd be making now. But the fact is that as baseball slowly but surely shrinks in terms of the national mindset, oddly enough, there's more money going to, great players deserve what they get, but pretty darn good players are about to live very, very well. Now, the problem is that next tier below them, right? So you're going to have rookies, guys, no rookie deals, sort of like in football, though it's not quite the same the way structure works. But then you're going to have really good players that you need, and then superstars, right? And then the guys below that is where it's going to hollow out. Your fourth, fifth outfielder, you're a fourth, fifth, the Biff Pocorobas of the world, right? Those guys that aren't quite good enough to be full-time starters, that's where you're going to see them go cheap, right? Because unless you're, once again, like the Dodgers who don't care.
Is that like 60 to 80 million bill for them?
Well,
what you're looking at? It's like
I'm saying that we may have to pass the hat for these individuals because they may not even clear 100 million in their entire careers.
Oh,
now,
man,
for just
not even 100 million in their entire career.
In their entire careers. So think about this: for just $280,000 a year, which is less than you would pay for like the top flight Ferrari, you can help one of these fourth, fifth infielders, fourth, fifth outfielders to finally be able to afford the G5 private jet that their friends have. So please, as the holiday season approaches, think about these players and how embarrassed they are when they're the only one that doesn't. They only have a mansion, but not a compound like their friends.
Dave, what do you think? We're talking about 200 million. Like it's chump change. I remember when 200 million used to be considered generational wealth. Now what's that? 5 Ferraris, Bill, and maybe two mansions.
If you're lucky, if you're in Florida where there's no income tax, or Texas, but in California, not even that. Think about this.
You're scraping by on 200 mil out there. Absolutely.
You are probably only getting fractional access to a private jet. Think of the children.
When the median family income in the Pittsburgh area is like $50,000 a year, I mean, it's crazy. I wish that they would take lower salaries and pass it on to the fans that go to games and reduce concessions,
socialist.
Never's going to happen. But this is and I would never begrudge him. I mean, for me, make as much money as you can. But this guy's a career 260 hitter.
Yep.
He averages 30 home runs a year. I mean,
what you are describing is like Amos Otis. Or maybe, okay, I'm exaggerating slightly. Maybe not Amos Otis, but like George Foster. You're describing maybe George Foster.
Yeah, I mean, really good player, but I mean.
Good. Yes, solid. A guy you feel good about putting his name in the lineup card.
Yeah. And I don't begrudge him making the money. Make as if somebody were to offer any of you guys $200 million to be built.
Wait, what? Sorry, I'm leaving the show now. What was that?
No, it's to do the sports crib. I would not begrudge that. But wow, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, Dave, 260 hitter, not 360.
No, that's not a 360 hitter.
Not 310, not 308, not 301.
Not 40 or 50 homers a year.
No. You can't get that for a mere $200 million these days.
Man, those guys are going for $500 million, 40 home run. Just $500 million right there, isn't it?
I mean, Aaron Judge is saying to himself, damn it, I was born too early. If only I were a few years younger.
Oh, man. I mean, like I said, just look back at the salaries when we started the show, Bill.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. What, just saying roughly from 2018, till now, for 2015, I think it'll probably show the Sports Crib. But just thinking that small little window of time, we've probably went from where players capped out at 200 million to now,
I'm thinking about what guys like Willie McCovey, not like the guys, I'm not going to think of like even what Barry Bonds or something, but think what Willie McCovey would go for.
Like you
9
said,
figures,
Judge,
man. 9 figures, easy for McCovey. I'm going to tell you that right now. 9-figure guy he is.
Like Bill mentioned, you have to go back that far. Judge.
Oh, yeah. Aaron Judge is like, damn it. Why wasn't I born 7 years later?
So, yeah, it's amazing how we talk about the small market of baseball and we're throwing around numbers like 700 million, 200 million,
And
small.
This is why Tampa, the Rays in Tampa, will all people. We don't have Mr. Bah humbug here when it comes to analytics. But if it weren't for analytics, that team would not be able to compete at all. They would be basically like a 4A franchise, just developing players for other teams, which they kind of still are. But they're able to compete because, and only because, they have the best analytics department in baseball. So they still are able to be competitive because they can't pay, as someone mentioned, the tax on what some of these guys are getting.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
The Grizzlies, John Morant returned last night, and he had a couple.
Did he, Jay? Is that what I heard? Is that what that noise was?
With some miraculous plays, including the game winner. So I'm going to put on my black socks here, and I want to get an over or under before Ja commits his next transgression. So I'm going to start with you, Dave. What do you think? How long before Ja gets put out again? Or do you think he's going to be the good citizen?
You know better than to ask me an NBA question.
I was going to say, I don't know if Dave knows that John's even playing in the NBA. I'm not
sure. You may want to tell him exactly who this Ja Morant is.
Right. Let's start there. Who the hell is Ja?
Well, okay. Then I'm going to come to you then, Reggie. What do you think?
Okay, so last time was it what, 6 weeks? How many weeks was it last time when he sat down in front of Adam Silver and then was out of there again? I think it was like a month. Was it like 4 weeks last time? Let me think. Let's just say it was 4 to 6 weeks last time. I remember it being very close. What month is it? We're in December now, right?
Yes, sir.
December.
December.
I believe he's a change man. So I'm going to at least double what he did last time. I'm going to go to at least 12 weeks here. I'm going to say he makes it to March, to around March, before there's any issues. He's a change guy. He's going to get to March without his name coming up in a negative fashion.
Bill, do you agree?
See, transgression is a term if you'd said felony, I would have said he's going to be clean run rest of the year. But you said transgression.
That's
And
what
that
I said.
It's a lower bar. For sure.
Right. So that could mean calling somebody out their name on Twitter. So
that's coming from someone that knows the difference between a felony and a transgression.
right, exactly. So if transgression, if calling someone out of their name on Twitter is part of that panoply, part of that spectrum of transgression, then I'm going to go with what was just said. I think he makes it at least to where the team is being eliminated from the playoffs. If that's how you're defining transgression. Now, I don't think he gets arrested or convicted of anything else for the whole rest of when I say year, I don't just mean 2023, because that's a pretty safe bet. But I mean the rest of the NBA season, and I think even to the beginning of next season. That's how convinced I am that he's learned from this in terms of crimes, like straight up crimes.
Yeah,
but he's also been chirping about how he's kept receipts. So I'm thinking that he may have a little back and forth with someone on social media, which, may get a little playful, a little jocular, and maybe he occasionally calls somebody out their name. So if you're talking about that, yes, I say towards the time that they get eliminated from the playoffs, and then somebody, decides to go back at him about something, he goes back at them. A little back and forth. But in terms of anything that involves wearing a ski mask, I think he's done for the time being.
See, when you brought up the ski mask, Bill, that's the part where I think the transgression falls. Little boys with toys. Bill, you remember when you got your first M16?
I do. I was 19 years old. And there's no prouder moment when you get that M16A1, right? And you qualify, right? You show that to your mom, your dad, your girlfriend, or the girl you want to be your girlfriend. Your dad throws your arm around you, tells you how proud he is, but that he did better. And because dads always have to, one up you. But yeah. Of course I do. How do you not remember that proud moment? How about you, Reggie? What was yours like? What was your first like?
It wasn't quite as proud of a moment as I'm thinking as I'm sharing here with you guys here. I'm just gonna put it out there now. It wasn't as proud of a moment for me.
But yeah, I'm just thinking that first time deal when he gets that new Uzi, or maybe his boy has one, and we put on the ski.
You're thinking he might go Uzi in solidarity with Israel. You're thinking that might be a statement he makes.
I know we're joking, but it's a very serious matter. I do hope
serious matter.
I do hope the young man has really changed and turned things around, and at least had learned the lesson that there are certain things that you don't do in public.
Absolutely.
Well, I guess the question, was he suspended in the NBA? Did they suspend him?
A couple times.
A few
James,
times.
was that to catch Dave up on the last year and a half?
You're right.
I was just wondering if it was comparable to other sports, like with NFL, where they have, you've had a number of incidents where players have done things off the field that have gotten them suspended. So is it a similar situation?
Well, Dave, I put it like this: he's had more than one incident similar to was it the New England player that was trying to get through security?
Right.
And said that he didn't know it was there.
It happens. Sometimes you lose track of your 9mm. I mean, who hasn't occasionally said, "Oh, I forgot that was in there"?
And security would have to be a strip club, by the way. You have to play security with that whole strip club in a different state.
So, yeah, Ja likes to show his toys, and he's a paper gangster that I kind of leave it at that. But Dave, I know you have to know who Steph Curry is.
Yeah, I know who he is. Yeah.
Now we're talking. We're talking.
Hey, cooking with gas.
Okay. So my question here is: there's a lot of people talking about Steph and his tremendous shooting ability. Uh, Dave, with your limited knowledge of basketball, would you put Steph in your top 5 or your top 10?
Well, I go back to Pistol Pete Maravich shooting from the corner, Jerry West with the Lakers. I really couldn't tell you, because the hard thing for me is I haven't really been watching NBA today, like in the last few years. And so there's a lot of great players. And I think that athletically, they're probably heads and shoulders above, literally above the NBA players from the past. But then it's kind of like what those players brought to the game. What Jerry West brought to the game, what somebody like Magic Johnson brought to the game. And with Steph Curry, I guess my question back to you is, has he brought to the game what players like that did? I mean, to me, those were, and I don't think that Jerry West or Pete Maravich would be in my top 10, but like somebody like Magic Johnson probably would be. Okay, somebody like Michael Jordan would be, and but they were kind of, to me, iconic figures for basketball. And to Steph Curry, is he that iconic? Because when you're getting down to the top 5, the top 10 all time, well, then I'm looking for the impact that they had on the game. And does he have the same impact on the game as some of these other players? He might be better, but again, I believe that, probably not having watched it, but I believe just from the development and the little bit that I've seen, that these players today are much better than what was ever put on the court, even 20, 30 years ago.
Let me just say really quickly, Dave, the one thing that Steph Curry has done is he's entirely changed the way players, including guys who were 7'3", see shooting the basketball. So you'll now go to a youth league game where 55% of the shots put up are 3-pointers. So every level of basketball, everywhere on the country, not just in the country, everywhere around the world has changed its approach to shooting from not just 3-point range, but like 7 or 8 feet behind the 3-point line. Shots that would have gotten you benched and possibly even castrated now are just allowed to go. Like if you were 7 feet tall, even just 15 years ago, and you jacked up some 2 or 3 threes and missed them badly, that's it. Like if you tried to take another 3, the coach would say, okay, I'm getting you, I'm cutting you, trading you, whatever. Now, Chet Holmgren, Wimbiana, like there's a bunch of guys who were not just 7-footers, but 7+, putting up 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 threes a game, and not an eye is batted.
But you're attributing this change to Curry, and so
yes,
that would be.
And I'm attributing to Curry because you can look at it. I don't think it's just a coincidence that once he begins changing the way people see the 3-pointer with both his accuracy and the number of them he takes, you can actually look from the moment he enters the league. There's it stays pretty steady for the first couple of years. Then when he breaks out, finally gets that ankle injury situation wrong. Like he has, first years of his career, keeps having ankle problems. But once his ankles finally solidify, now track his career and the number of threes being taken, not just in the NBA, but in basketball as a whole. The trend line almost exactly lines up. So no, I don't think it's just a coincidence. I remember having arguments with my basketball head friends. I'm not a basketball head, but I have friends who told me there's no way a jump shooting team like Golden State would be able to defeat LeBron's, Cleveland Cavaliers. Come on now. They're going to beat them up on the inside, blah, blah, blah. All my basketball head friends kept telling me, nah, right? I'm like, okay, watch. The game is changing. I'm not a guy who seriously knows basketball like some of my friends do. Some of my friends played, coached, blah, blah, blah. But what I do know is I know how to analyze data. And I could see that Steph Curry was changing the way coaches, GMs, and players saw the 3-point. And not just 3-pointers, but like from way behind the 3-point line even. He'll put up 40-footers and no one bats an eye. So nobody was putting up as many threes from as far behind the line as him ever before. And now everyone is seeing that the 3-point line and the 3-point shot completely differently. And yes, I attribute that to him.
Because so to me, you're giving a powerful argument as to why he might stack up there in the top 5 or 10. I mean, if he's had that type of an impact on the game itself.
He deserves to be mentioned just in terms of impact with guys like Jordan and Wilt.
Hold on. What do you think, Reggie? Is having an impact on the game, does that put him in the top 5 or the top 10?
Top 10 without a question.
Without a question. Or is that two different subjects? What impact versus scoring?
I feel like once you start talking about top 10 players, you're looking for different things to kind of separate the players. So you're looking for these guys are all talented. They all had somewhat of an impact. You won't be mentioning them. It's only 10 players. So, or they were all pivotal for the time that they were playing. So I think that you look to have certain things to try to separate these players. Why a lot of times people are bringing up the championships and they're trying to find a way to separate LeBron and Jordan. Like you're trying to separate guys that are all
splitting hairs.
Very special guys. Exactly. And you're looking for different metrics to kind of explain that. Now, I would say that without a question, Steph Curry would at least be in the top 10. For that top 5 is a little harder to crack because, I'm an old school guy. I love my Kareems of the world. It's hard for me to put them there, but can I put him in the top 10? Absolutely. Without a doubt, especially with all those championships. And just to piggyback off what Bill said, I think it was Curry, but it was also Clay. It was the fact that they were both shooting the ball at that rip and having an extreme amount of success doing it. And once people saw the success they were having, shooting it from damn near half court on a consistent basis, that changed the makeup of the game a bit. So I definitely would put him in the top 10. Absolutely.
All right. I hear you. Good evening, Jeffrey. How are you? And welcome to the Christmas show.
Hi, everyone. Good to be on.
Yep.
Well, Jeffrey, we the last time you were on, we were talking about Florida State. Now it seems that there are some other things coming to the ACC. Jeffrey, what's your take on the portal and catching an acorn there at Syracuse?
Absolutely. Syracuse with their new coach Fran Brown, he has went on fire. I don't think anyone could have seen the impact he was going to make this quickly. Well, I will say I didn't see it coming this fast.
Wrote a whole article about it. Check it out on Team MBS Sports.
There you go, Bill. I should have been listening to Bill on that. But yeah, he's a New Jersey guy, and this is the best recruiting class that Syracuse has put together. Of course, they got Kyle McCord, the starting quarterback at Ohio State, and you got Paul Feinbaum, saying he doesn't understand the decision, and I think the common denominator of what's going on at Syracuse is there with Mr. Brown. It's a new age there. I think it's Syracuse, and it wasn't that Dino Babers was a bad coach. I don't think anyone looked at him and said he couldn't coach. His issue was he couldn't get the players in, and if Fran Brown can get these kind of players at Syracuse with what he's already accomplished, you're just gonna have to watch out for Syracuse here in the next few years. And I mean, you see what happened to Louisville, in this year in Jeff Brom's first season. I mean, they're already talking about, hey, that maybe that could be Syracuse next year, come out and just surprise everyone and put together, an 8, 9, 10 win type season.
Hey, the only thing I could do, my mouth just dropped on saying, when the starting quarterback at Ohio State has decided to go to Syracuse. it was like, you know.
Can we talk about Fran Brown? Francis Fran Brown. I said this guy, pound for pound, maybe the best recruiter in college football. Read the article. So 6-6, 8-4, 10 wins. That's the track. Write it down someplace. 6-6, then 8-4, then double-digit wins the year after that. Write it down. They are about to be a contender in a couple of years and will be one as long as they can hold on to Fran Brown. That's the problem. Is once you start getting up there, yeah, if they can hold on to him at least into year 3, that's the one caveat, because people are going to start sniffing around. Texas A&M loves firing and hiring coaches. So if he gets to 8-9 wins at Syracuse, watch for Texas A&M to sniff around, because they fall in and out of love more than Jennifer Lopez. So that's the one thing I'll say. You know, if he has one good season, might be time for an extension. I'm half joking, but only half joking, because Texas A&M does not care. They give zero beeps about money. They've bought out how many coaches? I think they're still paying Sumlin. I know that Jimbo and somebody else. I think you got 3 coaches they're still paying. They don't care. They don't care. Oil money, I guess. But yeah, no, Fran Brown is about to get it done at Syracuse. Watch for their defensive backfield, particularly. Fran Brown himself was an excellent defensive back. I scouted him when he was a Western Carolina Catamount. But he is going to develop and bring in a crop of defensive backs like Syracuse has not seen in its maybe ever, but certainly in its recent history.
Well, Bill, while you're talking about Fran Brown, there's another thing that maybe you could explain to us, and that's the flip of a 5-star recruit, Dylan. I'm going to
say Dominic Raiola's kid, yeah,
from Georgia to Nebraska. Nebraska seems that they're doing a pretty good job in recruiting, also because of the portal.
Yeah. Well, even in high school, he flipped, right? The kid's from Chandler, Arizona. How he ends up in Buford, Georgia is, right? You know, in my day, kids would transfer every now and again. And because, like, I grew up in a very military part of the world. Hey, you know, your parents got sent from, Rhode Island to San Diego because the Navy needed them here, there, whatever. Now I see kids picking up, moving across country purely for football reasons. And their family's like, yeah, it happens. But the Raiolas are a football family, and they understand how the game is played. It's like, okay, son, for you to get, better offers, we're willing to uproot our entire lives, move 2,900 miles across the country. Woo! You got to love sports. But yeah, a terrific athlete. And essentially, he's a more athletic version of his godfather. Everybody know who his godfather is? His godfather is one John Matthew Stafford. So he's been tossing the ball around with a guy named John Matthew Stafford since he was a youngin'. So yes, he is that what is it, pearl of great price. But he's worth whatever they're paying to him, and which is fully legal nowadays. Kids, look it up. He's going to make. That was the one problem at Nebraska for a long time. They couldn't get NIL together, right? Now Dom Pelini is somewhere saying, I managed to win 8 or 9 games without any of that stuff. And you did, Dom, and God bless you for it. But they didn't love you for it. They moved on from Frankie Solich, miss him yet? And they moved on from Pelini, and then they kept downgrading with each successive hire. They thought they got it right when they brought in, the prodigal son, right? They went out and got, Scott had been this, great quarterback for them. It played for Osborne. But they finally got a real program builder. And while it has not worked, it may never work for Matt Rule at the NFL level, look at what he's done every place he's gone at the collegiate level. Look at what he did at Temple. Look at what he did at Baylor. He clearly understands how to flip a distressed property, to put it in real estate terms. He says, you got a curb appeal problem. Now, for those who've never been to Nebraska, and particularly to Lincoln, Nebraska, it's not an ugly part of the world. I don't want to make get people confused, but like Syracuse, it doesn't have anything that immediately grabs the attention of a teenage boy. Just to remind everybody, football recruitment is about teenage boys, at least at the high school level, and then even in terms of the transfer portal, about boys, young men in their early 20s. Think about what things make your eyes go big when you're 18, 19, 20, 21 years old. Neither Syracuse, New York, or Lincoln, Nebraska has those things. It's not like if somebody visits Miami and visits
12
UNC's
inches of
campus.
snow would get my attention, Bill.
Yes, well, that's what I'm saying. So you have to really find guys that are football first. Rail is from a football family. So despite all the little jokes I'm going to make about NIL, I want to make it clear that this, for them, is very much a football decision. One, they know he's going to have very little there's very little chance someone beats him out for the job. Let's be honest about that.
Competition.
Yeah, I mean, there'll be some. I mean, they're not going to literally hand him the job. I mean, not literally, but they're going to figuratively hand him the job, and he's going to be the offense. Whatever it is that he does best is what they're going to do. And I'm sure they said that to him. He is going to be a program changer, because once you see somebody like that, now 4-star receivers that had Nebraska nowhere on their list are like, and one last thing to bring it full circle, because of 7-on-7, which is a national thing, these kids travel all over the country. Guys now have friendships. I mean, it's so weird now. I'll see guys, follow each other on Instagram, follow each other on Twitter, who are literally like, one guy's in Southern California, the other one's in, Penn Hills, Pennsylvania. It's like, how do these guys look? Oh, Vapor Speed 7-on-7 or whatever it is, right? So because of 7-on-7 culture, which I often am critical of and will be again, but the one thing it has done is it's helped to bring together athletes who otherwise would not know anything about each other except what they read. Now these guys have been teammates. They couldn't have been teammates in high school because they are thousands of miles apart. But these 7-on-7s, like AAU in on the basketball side, brings the kids together that otherwise would never, ever meet. So we now have this subculture. It's not even a subculture. It's a culture. It's just a culture now within football that operates independently, but linked to high school recruiting and influences high school recruiting.
Glad you brought that full circle, Bill, by way of Miami. But Reggie, I'm going to let you talk a little bit about HBCUs and what kind of changes you've seen down there. Maybe had there been changes since Dion left? Has there been improvements? Have things digressed? What do you think?
I think it's hard to say that things have improved because Dion left, but I think that it's a net positive that he was here because of the attention that he brought. That attention still is here to a certain degree, and it wouldn't have been here if Dion was never here. It'd be like if Dion left Colorado, right? There'd still be the specter of Dion left there. He still would have raised their profile just by being around, and I feel like that's kind of what he's done for the HBCUs and HBCU football in general, in my opinion.
Okay. Jeffrey, has the ACC released their schedule yet for football next season? Jeffrey?
Yeah. Have they released? I don't. You know what? I honestly don't know if they've released. I think they have the. They do have. They did release the schedule about a month ago, where they had the Stanford and Cal and SMU added into it.
That went out a couple of years too, didn't it?
Yeah, they went out.
Yep.
I think it went out 3 years, showing the matchups and having the crossover opponents, the permanent rivals. Like I think Florida State has, they got Miami and they have Clemson as permanent rivals. For example, Georgia Tech has no permanent rivals, so they'll rotate through their schedules. So it's kind of all over the place, but I think they did the best with what they could do by limiting the amount of West Coast trips to like one every 2 or 3 years, I believe. They tried to accommodate the matchups, so it's kind of like a best of a bad situation, I would say.
Yeah, I was hoping that Bo was here. Bo said to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. He's a little tied up, but I wanted to see what he thought about the Washington State, Oregon State situation with the former Pac-12.
Yeah, the Pac
But
2, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Holding all the money.
Yes, that's how you do it.
yeah.
Let them laugh at you, but collect the money. That's the
Yeah,
American
man.
way.
Exactly. Make them settle for it.
So, Bill, how do you see that playing out? I asked Bo the last time he was here. How do you see that playing out? Like you said, collect the money, but what are they talking about? Being in the Central Mountain, the Mountain West, or
Well, I mean, they're not in the Mountain West. Remember how Notre Dame didn't join the ACC? Like they aren't going steady. They aren't even dating really, but they're friends with benefits. So it's something like that. We didn't join the Mountain West. There's no merger. There's no acquisition. We just, hit you with a what's up text. Hey, big head. And, sometimes we pop over with a bottle of wine. That's essentially what's happening. They decide to do something more formal? Sometimes someone turns over and looks at you and says, "What are we to each other?" At some point, the Mountain West and the Pac-2 will have to have that conversation, but not today. Right now, they're just friends with benefits, and amongst those benefits are ka-ching money, because the Pac-2 have money, as we just talked about, and the one thing that the Mountain West has thus far not gotten to its own satisfaction is a TV deal that feels like a Power 5 TV deal at all. But they might be in position to negotiate for one, or at least one that's Power 5 adjacent, because they have 2 Power 5 teams. And they may be able to pry away another one. If you think that this is over and done with, oh, my friends, you are truly new to this. There will be programs on the rise. We just saw what happened with SMU and the ACC. That wouldn't have happened 5 years ago. There'll be programs that will raise their profile. They'll get the right coach. They'll get the right recruiting class. They'll get the right whatever. And they'll have a great year at wherever conference they are. And one of these other conferences will be like, ooh, shiny. And when that happens, mark my words, friends and neighbors, the Pac-2 and friends will be more than willing to maybe send out a "you up" text to whoever is the running that particular team, the athletic director, because the sands will now forever shift. The idea of there being set who's in this conference and who's in that conference for generations, because that's what it was. I remember the Southwest Conference was around for generations, and then it wasn't, right? I mean, this is now the permanent state of affairs. The permanent state of affairs from this point forward is impermanence. Get used to it.
Reggie, I got to ask you. Now that we've seen, coming up, that the college football playoffs are going to be expanded to 12 teams. And we've seen how Alabama managed to back its way in this year. Should we just book Alabama for the next generation?
I feel like if Alabama was there for 10 years with 4 teams, we were definitely going to be there for 20 years with 12. That is what it's looking like on the horizon there. But I do think that you can't really be complacent with NIL and transfer portal guys. I don't think anybody can be complacent. Like, there's teams now, like Bill just said, they're going to come out of nowhere and could be competitive. We might not be thinking of them today, but I don't think that it's a situation where you can rest on your laurels and you can just sit back, kick, and relax and think that other team is not, chipping at you. So I think if Alabama stays competitive, if we can stay looking over our shoulder, don't get complacent, and just realize that the game is fluid, it's ever changing, then I think we have a good shot at being at least one of the 12 teams for at least the considerable future in the next 5 to 10 years. I'm not sure how long Saban's going to be there, but at least for as long as his tenure is.
Jeffrey, is there a team that, now that we're talking about an expansion of the 12, do you think we're going to see the the North Carolinas, the Dukes. Do you think that now there's a chance that some of them are going to get in?
Well, it depends on if they're going to count the wins during the season for the 12. I do think, they are going to, you'll get the ACC champion in, and in most years, the ACC is going to, likely is going to have at least one other team in the top 12, maybe even two more. So I do think there's a very real possibility you could see an NC State or North Carolina, a team like that. I mean, it wasn't even that long ago. Um, Georgia Tech had a top 10 team. That wasn't within the last decade. They had a top 10 team. So, I mean, and the way Miami recruited today was National Signing Day, and they had the number one recruiting class in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Got a 5-star flip from um, Florida State. They have the talent. If they can, just execute to what their talent level should be. I mean, there's no reason why Miami can't be a top 12 team as well. So, for the foreseeable future, until, as Bill said, everything breaks apart, I think over the next 2 or 3 years, I think there's definitely an opportunity for Clemson, Florida State, and at least one other team. I think you'll see at least one other team, a non-Florida State or non-Clemson, make the playoff from the ACC, and it could be a Miami, a NC State. North Carolina recruits well, though they've underachieved. They had 2 NFL quarterbacks and really couldn't do all that much with it. Virginia Tech's on the rise. Georgia Tech seems to be on the rise, and we talked about Syracuse already as well. If they go on the trajectory that I think it is possible that Bill described, they could find themselves. It wasn't that long ago. They had themselves a 10-win season under Dino Babers, so not impossible to see them in the top 12.
Bill, instead of the usual Ohio State, Michigan, what do you think? Ohio State, USC, Michigan, USC, Michigan, Washington. What's your thoughts here, Bill, on this expanded Big 16? As well as an expanded college football playoff.
Well, the thing that, once I mean, Black Sox moment, I fought initially, right, against all of this stuff. And I realized, it's like fighting against the coming of electricity by saying, I'll never stop burning whale oil, At some point, you have to realize that a ship has sailed. You have to either decide to drown or get on the new ship. So we're going to see teams we're not even thinking about are going to emerge in some of these conferences, as I talked about, because like I said, they bring in a super recruiter, they bring in a super recruit, they bring in whatever, and maybe not Vanderbilt. Certain teams have such structural constraints they may never be able to really break out. But I mean, is Texas A&M going to continue to sort of trip over its own phallus forever? Somebody's going to get it right at Texas A&M again, and they're going to be great once they finally get out of their own way, because they've got all of the fundamentals in place. An obscene amount of money, a fan base that is incredibly committed to winning, and in a perfect situation for location to get football talent in the most football crazy part of a football crazy nation. At some point, Texas A&M is going to be an 11, 12, a 10-win team. And they should be able to do it more than once in a 5-year period when you think about the fundamentals that are there in place. So we're going to see in the Big Ten particularly, I mean, Michigan's going to not stop being Michigan. They've been good for 100-plus years, guys. That's not likely to change. Ohio State's going to be Ohio State. But some of the new additions are going to adapt better than others. Watch out for Utah. Utah already kind of was a Big Ten team, but didn't know it yet. And so think about how much they are like Wisconsin and how they like to play football already. They throw the ball when they have to. They recruit the daylights out of enormous human beings. Now, the difference is that the enormous human beings at Wisconsin usually have names that end in like a bunch of letters with no vowels in them. It's the reverse, right? The huge people from Utah have a bunch of vowels with no consonants in them towards the end of their names, right? Mana, pala, pala, panam, and way, wow, wow, right? But they're huge people, and they want to pound on you. What's more Big Ten than having a bunch of 350-pound dudes? Utah loves 350-pound dudes. So they're going to be just fine. There are some franchises. Well, nowadays, I guess they are franchises that will do just fine, right? Yeah. They'll do just fine because they already have the fundamentals in place to play in Big Ten, vintage style football. It won't bother them at all when it's 19 degrees and sleeting. Utah's built for that. Some schools will struggle with that. They aren't built for it. But they have a speed advantage. They have this advantage. So they'll win a lot of the early season games because they'll just be running circles around some of these teams that don't have the kind of speed and skill, switch, and talent they have. But yeah, they'll get beaten up later in the season against some of these teams. But Utah's built for the Big Ten. They're more built for the Big Ten than they were for the Pac-12.
All right. Well, I see we have Mr. Scott and Don have joined us, but Jeffrey, why don't you give us your final thoughts for the evening? And as always, we here at the Sports Crib wish you a happy holidays and look forward to having you back after the first of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, thanks for having me on. Enjoy talking with everyone and wish you all of you a happy and safe holidays. For me, I'm here watching North Carolina and Oklahoma. I've kind of, Duke, we saw just played Baylor. It looked very impressive in the final 10 minutes. So, it's not vintage ACC basketball, but they've got a little bit more depth than they've had the last couple years. The top end should be pretty good. Clemson has been really impressive opening the season. The only loss was 2 points there at Memphis, and then now if Duke and North Carolina can continue what they're showing tonight, they can be threats in March. So I've kind of personally turned the page a little bit from football, and I'm jumping headfirst into college basketball.
That's the most ACC thing you've ever said.
Right. Absolutely.
Thank you, Jeffrey. We'll see you next year.
All right. Take care.
See you later, buddy.
Take care, Jeff.
Don, you came in just in time. We were talking, you're muted there also, but you came in just in time. We were talking about that Texas schedule that was now that the SEC has put its schedule out. What did you think about that first year's schedule? You're muted. Your mic is muted. I don't think it's from my end. Let's see.
There you go. Hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
I couldn't find the mute button. So, what? Repeat the question, please.
We were talking about
computer.
We were talking about the schedule, Texas schedule, as its first year in the SEC. The schedule's been released for next year already. Did you see it?
I have. Of course I have. I'm a season ticket holder. So schedule next year is a woozy. We get to go to Michigan. So that's a Final Four team this year. So Texas, Michigan, I'm sure that'll be hyped up. Georgia's coming to us. We have Oklahoma, of course, Arkansas, Florida. You get to go to Florida. So yeah, it's a fun schedule we have. I think we probably have the toughest schedule in the nation, if not the second. I mean, it's going to be
lots of fun. Just having Georgia and Michigan in there, and then though in Arkansas, that's a rivalry game. Go back to to almost 100 years ago. So it's going to be a blast.
Well, if you like the roads in Oklahoma, you really haven't been to Michigan, have you?
I have not been to Michigan. It's on my bucket list. I want to go up there and was it in the fall that they had the flower, the cherry blossoms? Is that what it is?
Oh yeah, they do have cherry blossoms.
Yeah.
There's some tree up there that looks real nice in the fall. I'm going to pick that out.
They have this little thing called snow.
Get Demetrius to give me a tour.
There you go.
You can find him.
They have this little thing called snow also up there, Don, and I don't mean it in the quantities that you have in San Antonio. Should be interesting. A lot of snow. It should be interesting, Texas, Michigan, to see how those boys play up there. Yeah, not saying it doesn't get cold.
We play them in September, so it shouldn't be too bad.
Oh yeah, it's much better actually. If you have to play them,
and they do.
Reggie, we're getting ready to go to the NFL, and I know your time is kind of limited. So after we say hello to Mr. Scott here, Mr. Scott, looks like he's over there, counting his money or getting his receipts together for the day. If I was, back in the day, Mr. Scott, I say you was counting your number slips.
Counting your number. That's a Black Sox moment right there. Counting the numbers. Goodness.
How you doing this evening, Mr. Scott?
Doing very good. Doing very good, gentlemen. It's good to join you. I was, I'm missing one certain person that I was really expecting to be here so that I could praise his great quarterback with the 5 touchdowns. And, I was just going to tell him how missed he is. So yeah, it's great. The Vikings, a tough loss, and I'm sure we'll get into some of those things. But things are good. Looking for a good, fun holiday season toward the end of this year.
Mr. Scott, we were just talking about the realignment of conferences. What do you think? Minnesota, UCLA, Minnesota, USC. What do you think? When we had to start having all of these Western or former Pac-12 teams coming into the Big Ten or Big 12, Big 16, whatever you want to call it.
I don't really know what to think about that. I mean, I loved the Big Ten. I loved to be able to play Ohio State, Michigan State, and all the teams every year. And now we get these other teams coming in, the rivalries. I mean, okay, well, Penn State and then now Nebraska and now the West Coast. It's not a Big Ten anymore. I mean, it's a former Big Ten. I mean, it was a great conference. And I thought the Pac-10 itself was a great conference. So this new alignment, the dollars, maybe, analytics, maybe these kind of things have really just changed, the rivalry and the old school great rivalries that we had in those, in the Big Ten. I just don't think the Big Ten exists anymore. I think it's just, if you have 16 teams, how is it a Big Ten? I don't.
Right. The Big 16. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dave, what do you think? You've watched the Big Ten pretty much, Penn State, Ohio State, and then, even Pitt. What's your thoughts on this expansion of conferences, Dave?
Well, I think, there's a couple things. I think for coaches, the paradigm shift. It used to be recruit, and then once you recruited a player, with few exceptions, you could build a team. Now with the transfer portal, you have to recruit, but now you have to retain. And so I know that Pitt and Penn State, I just hope that they don't start losing too many players. And are they going to be able to attract players in order to be competitive? But I think on the broader scope, I think the advantage of the transfer portal and the expansion to a 12 game playoff is now all of a sudden, like several of you have kind of commented on, and Jeff before, we may have some new teams kind of all of a sudden come into the picture for a couple of years, and then they fade out. So like with Syracuse, yeah, maybe they get in there, but are they going to be able to retain all those players that have been recruited? And that's going to be the challenge for that coach. And how long will players give them to say, okay, I'm playing, or that the program is successful, that they're playing winning football before they pull the plug and go into the transfer portal. I think for Penn State, I think maybe that they'll get into the top 12 college football, but not year in, year out. Maybe once every 4 or 5 years, because they do still tend to be able to recruit some good recruiting classes. The question is retention, and they've always been kind of second tier. They've never quite been consistently in the top 6, say, and that's where you needed to be before to be in the conversation for the college football playoff. Now that it's the top 12, well, I think Penn State might be able to get in there every few years. For Pitt, they too have recruited a lot of good talent. They haven't always, the sum of their talent hasn't always equated to the product that they've put out onto the field. And I think it's probably going to be a similar situation to Penn State. They may be able to build up over a few years and then make a run, and then they'll fade off before they want. They're not going to be like an Alabama, where year in, year out, you can count on them being in there.
Yeah, I kind of have to agree with that. So I want to make sure that we get Reggie in here, as I know, Reggie, your time is sometimes kind of filled, but we got to talk about what happened with your team this week. And what's happening in your division, because it was the Panthers kicker Ed Pinero that kicked you guys out of first place in a thrilling 9-7 offensive display of power. So Reggie, we've seen Ritter in, Ritter out. It seems like you guys have wasted Drake London's season. I'm not sure. Is Cordell Patterson still on the roster? What's going on with the Falcons?
Well, I'm gonna get straight to it. We suck. That's what's going on. We are not a good football team down here. We are just not good. We're not good, guys. I'm a homer, but I'm a realistic homer. I'm not one of those guys that just talks out of his ass. You know what I mean? We are not good. We don't have a good football team. And you say that I think that Arthur Smith kicked us out of the playoffs a long time ago, about midway of the season with the Bijan hijinks that he had here. And let me do you one better. You said wasting Drake London's time. Oh, we wasting Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and Bijan Robinson, and a top 10 defense. So let's go ahead and throw all of those guys in there. He's wasting everybody's time is being wasted here. So until we can figure out our quarterback situation, we had Desmond Ritter. He was never the guy. Let's just be honest, guys. He was never the guy. I remember talking to Dave about Kenny Pickett in Pittsburgh and saying, I don't really know. I don't really know if he's the guy. And I think he's more the guy there than Desmond Ritter is the guy here. So look how unfortunate that is, guys. We the other team scored 9 points and we lost 9 points and we could not muster 10. So it's frustrating. It's even more frustrating that from what I hear, Arthur Blank is going to retain Smith. I don't really know why he would do so. Maybe just being nice and waiting to the end of the year to fire him. But 7-10. You know, I had a friend send to me a message the other day. He says that Brandon Staley had a better record and got fired than what Arthur Smith is dealing with. So, and they rode Brandon Staley's ass all season. So I'm not sure how Arthur Smith is getting a pass here. I think he should be gone. Even if he wins out these next 2 or 3 games, our division is absolutely horrid, and we are somehow not competing for that top spot. So at the end of the day, guys, I hope you guys have a happy holidays down wherever you guys are. Hope your teams are doing better for you than my team is doing down here. Absolutely disappointing us Sunday after Sunday here. But yeah, that's about it, man. That's the long and short of it here. You know, happy holidays, guys, to you and yours.
All right. Hey, take care, Reggie.
Thank you, guys. See you next time.
I wish I could say my team was doing.
I was going to say his team still has a chance to win their division, so I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, what does that say about our division, guys? All right. See you next time.
Yeah. And I think he's being a little too definitive about Desmond Ritter, considering he has to try to overcome Arthur Smith. I'd love to see Desmond Ritter in the delicate hands of, say, one Alonzo Pep Hamilton. I think if he had someone who actually knew how to develop quarterbacks, he might look better.
Okay. All right. Let's see. I'm going to kind of grab you guys while I know that you're here. Mr. Scott, let's talk about your Vikings here. A couple of weeks ago, we were kind of riding high on the Vikings, when they thought that Rocket Man was going to be the savior. Then, understandably, they thought Justin Jefferson was coming back. He came back for maybe 3 or 4 plays, and now he's out again. We're not sure what your playoff predictions look like. Consider that the Lions are, of course, at the top of the division. Seems like the Packers, we thought that they were going to do something for a minute there, and all of a sudden the Packers look like their hopes are going down in flames. So, Mr. Scott, what's going on up there in Minnesota? And do you think that your team is can possibly still win out, like you said before?
Well, JK3, you like to make statements such like teams are going down in flames and no good. And of course, you don't say that about Pittsburgh, but what I'm going to say,
boy, you really haven't been here in a while.
We trust me, we've said all that and more.
And this whole thing, when you talk about names like Ritter, Dobbs, Mullins, the Wicked Pickett, I mean, the season has been just a minefield for these quarterbacks. I mean, so you really can't really tell. To me, it's really hard to regroup yourself during the year. Like this will be the 4th. Mullins is the 4th guy that started for the Vikings. Mm-hmm. And he actually did not look too bad in the game. He did not look too bad. But that one interception where he's laying on his back and he throws it to the lineman. I mean, my goodness, how can you do that? Yep. The turnovers have just killed this team. No matter who's playing quarterback, dropped passes, fumbles, can't run the ball. Now, they found somebody last week, this guy, Ty. He ran the ball very well.
Tyreek Chandler. Yes, Tyreek Chandler.
Yeah, he ran the ball very well. So we'll see. Mullins, jury's still out. We'll see. I agree with giving him another chance. Because, I think he had moments, and when you have Jefferson back and the new Addison, you have Hawkinson, so you have weapons on offense, and you have generally a good defense. So The Lions, well, it looks like they're in control of the division, but we'll see. There's 3 good games coming up. The Vikings play the Lions twice. They get a chance to have them twice. So
Right. You play them 2 out the last 3 games.
Yeah.
well, that's 3 games. So that should be very, very interesting. We'll see. You know, the Wolves are kind of circling around Kevin O'Connell, that he's not getting the job done, and you know, they say this Dobbs should have stayed in. So there's just a lot of upheaval on the team right now. So it's hard to really put your finger on. I really wish the one man from Detroit was here, so maybe he could put my mind at ease about the Central Division. Maybe he has all the answers. You know, he's winning, and now he doesn't come around now that it's winning, and so we'll see. I'm not going to count the Vikings out in this division.
Do you think you can beat Detroit twice, or would you settle for a split?
Well, in spite of 5 touchdowns from, you know, Mr. Goff last week, I still think he's suspect. And I still think the Vikings defense it could cause some problems. The blitzing defense from Flores. Now, people are kind of on him now too. So, but yes, the Lions are still the Lions, and until they prove me wrong and actually show that they're really the roar has been restored. Yeah, I think the Vikings still have a shot.
Bill, talking about that game, Jake Browning, he had a good game. Chase he's out of the game versus the Steelers. There's no Burrow. There's a hobbled Higgins, and now possibly no Chase. What do you think there, Bill?
I think that you're about to learn to pronounce the name of Mr. Andre Yosavas. 6'3" and 1/8 inch tall, 203 pounds, from Princeton University, where he was the highest scoring pentathlete in all of college his senior year there. He also ran the fastest indoor 60 meters in all of the NCAA that year as well, despite being a 6'3", 200-plus pound individual, running mostly against guys who weigh 170, 180. He is a tremendous athlete. He's from Punahou High School, who many of you know is also the alma mater of our 45th president, Barack Hussein Obama. Was a terrific all-around athlete at Punahou, where he was the best football player, track, and basketball player at Punahou High. You're ready to learn his name. Trent Irwin will also contribute. But teams that know how to evaluate a position know how to evaluate a position. Take away a couple of their wide receivers. Now, Trent Irwin is not going to do the same things that a guy like T. Higgins does, or the same things that a guy like not Jamar Chase does. But Andre Yosavas is about to be a name that you're about to remember. He only has had 44 yards receiving so far, 6 receptions, but 2 touchdowns already. He's going to get at least 1 more and probably double his career yardage to this point. You can pencil him for probably about 6 targets, 4 catches, and probably about 88 yards. He is a big play threat. Got to talk to him somewhat at the combine. Quiet confidence. Not a guy that's going to, bang on his chest or, tell you how good he is. But I've watched his tape for the last 2 years that he was at Princeton. He's the most athletic player I've seen at Princeton, and I've been watching Princeton football since the early 1970s. He's the best pure athlete Princeton has produced in 50-plus years.
Dave, what's your take on the Bungles' win over the Vikings?
Well, I mean, I think the Bengals have really been stepping up, where some other teams have not. And I want to say kudos to Jake Browning. He seems to play with a chip on his shoulder. I think that the game against Minnesota was kind of a revenge game for him. And,
there you go. Yeah.
And now he has another one coming up, because he got beat by the Steelers the first time around. But I think that you're going to see a different quarterback. Pittsburgh's going to see a different quarterback than what they saw a couple weeks ago.
Okay. Don, let's talk about the Rangers. 4 days after losing a game 3-0, the Rangers set a franchise scoring record by beating the Chargers 63-21.
Mm-hmm.
Let me say that again: 63-21. Bill, the following, Don, the following day, the Chargers fired their head coach, Brandon Staley, and the GM, Tom Telesco. Chargers president, John Spanos, spits out some of the same BS that he spit out while he was down here in San Diego. He says ownership is responsible for everything. It's been a while since the Chargers made the playoffs. Don, do you think maybe they should look around for trading partners for Justin Herbert? Or what's your thoughts of the Chargers and the Ravens?
Well, there's several paths we go on this topic. First of all, I gotta give kudos to the Raiders for bouncing back like that. You go from having a 3-0 game to putting 63 on someone. That's pretty impressive. That tells me someone watched some film and did some ass kicking. In those 3 days in between the games. The Chargers have always been mediocre. I don't remember. Maybe when Dan Fouts was under center, they were competitive. They were playing for championships in the AFC.
They won championships in the AFL, Don.
Well, I'm talking about.
AFL. That's when I was young.
I'm talking about in my lifetime.
Oh yeah, you're not talking about watching John Hadle toss it around to Garrison and Allworth back in the day. Okay,
Don's not quite as old as I am. I'm sorry.
Oh,
yeah. I was born in 1968, so.
Oh, you just missed their golden era.
Yeah, just missed. But yeah,
that brings 3 letters to me, Don. TET. But go ahead, Don. 1968.
Yeah.
My slippers are that old, Don. I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah, I was born in 1968, and I'm an Aquarian, so I should be a long-haired hippie right now, right?
What day, Don?
You're gonna hate me, James. I was born on Tet.
Oh,
Yeah.
January 31st.
Holy cow! Wow.
wow, that's right.
My birthday is February 4th, so welcome to Ted on your 21st birthday.
So my shout out to my mother, February the 11th. So yes, excellent.
That's Sue's birthday, February 11th.
Well, that's why Sue's so awesome. Tell Sue that my affinity towards her, I now begin to understand more completely.
Go ahead, Don.
So I'm just saying, when the Chargers kind of knee-jerk reaction to fire the head coach. I'm not saying he should be fired, but there's 3 games left in the season. Let the guy finish out. I've never been a big fan of firing people in the middle of the season. Texas A&M did it to Jimbo Fisher. It's happened before in other places. So I'm just thinking, let the guy finish out, then clean house. It just sends a bad message. But Spanos, as you said, has not been he's not always the voice of reason in the room, right? So, yeah. But
Weren't they in the playoffs last year?
What's that?
Weren't the Chargers in the playoffs last year?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think they were the wild card, weren't they, Bill?
Yeah, but the issue is he's just mismanaged. Brandon Staley. Now, in their case, they don't really have a coach in waiting situation unless they see Kellen Moore maybe as that, which I don't think they do. Well, whatever. We'll talk about other teams later. There's teams where it makes sense actually to fire their head coach at this point. The fact is they shouldn't have hired him in the first place. So I have a whole other rant about that we can do later, I guess. But this is a team that's headed in the wrong direction and for a bunch of reasons. But I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
Well, no, yeah. I mean, you said playing that to me, I'm on the same wavelength. I just don't think that, you have a team that's mismanaged, but you end up firing the people that you hired. I just don't. You're comes right down to you're the root reason why teams mismanaged. And we see owners do stupid stuff all the time. Jerry Jones fired Jimmy Johnson.
Oopsie.
Because he was drunk at the time, and they just made up like 30 years later. So, yeah, it's a crazy business being an owner of a sports franchise, I guess.
Mr. Scott, when you talk about the Chargers, like they said, they went from making it, kind of backing into the playoffs last year. Not that they didn't have a good record, but I think they were the wild card. But what do you think there, Mr. Scott? Is this a management problem? I've always looked at the Chargers and said that they have a bunch of good individuals, but they're never able to mold themselves into a team.
Well, the Chargers are in Los Angeles now, right?
Yes, sir.
It's to me, they just have an identity crisis. I mean, it's San Diego. I mean, you see the same uniforms and thing, but then now they're in LA, and I guess that's kind of the same area. I don't know. You're out there, JK3. That San Diego, I mean, is very close to LA. So I just see them have kind of an identity crisis. Getting a big win like I'm not. I don't really even follow them that much.
Dave, when listening to Mr. Scott, I thought of something else. They are in LA, but unlike where you see 49er fans, Dallas fans, Pittsburgh fans, Charger fans don't seem to travel very well. I see a lot. You see them in LA, but I don't think I've seen one in Pittsburgh.
Didn't they have to drive up from San Diego? That's traveling. Yeah. With the Chargers, I go all the way back to Marty Schottenheimer when they fired him after he had a 14-2 season.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. And if firing a coach, if you didn't have somebody waiting, and I think Bill had mentioned it, why don't you just wait to the end of the season? And then why would you shop Justin Herbert yet if you don't know who your head coach is going to be next year? Or
I promise you, they're not moving Justin Herbert. No, First of all, do people not understand how dead cap works?
Well, I mean, the thing is I would think even if the cap wasn't an issue,
which it is,
you want to find out who your GM is and who your coach is to see what they want. They might say, "Hey, we want this guy."
Everybody wants this guy, but they can't move him. Like, it would cripple them. What would they be able to? They wouldn't hardly be able to field a team. Like, do people not understand how contracts work in the NFL? They can't do it. It can't be done. Whatever you're hearing is Bravo Sierra. They can't move him. He's too early into. He just signed that giant deal. They can't do it. They can't be moved. So if you've heard he's being moved, you've heard. I don't know what you're hearing. It can't be done. It literally cannot be done. They don't have enough cap room to make it happen. They'd have to get rid of half the team. It's a non-starter.
We said the same thing about Deshaun Watson. It can't be done.
No, we didn't say the same about Deshaun Watson because they had the cap room to make it happen. The contracts that they have on the books they didn't have the same kind of contracts on the books that the Chargers have on the books. They had the room to make it happen. The Chargers don't. So we didn't say the same thing because they're two different situations.
Yeah. Like I said, like you said, I mean, they're not going to move him, but,
and the Texans hadn't just extended Watson. That's the other big difference. The Chargers just extended Justin Herbert.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But the Chargers, as usual, were hit with a lot of injury problems. But let's kind of get on to the next one here. The Chiefs in their 2-game skid, beating the Patriots 27-17. Tony's miscue. Once again, we're talking about Tony and not this magnificent play that he's delivered, or how he's matured in his ability. But we're talking about a miscue that led to an interception for Mahomes. And if you were watching that game, Mahomes wasn't too happy about that. Do you think that Mahomes has lost confidence in Tony? And we've seen, that they have put Skywalker on IR, but I don't know if there's a spot for player stupidity. Bill?
Bill,
what? Do you
what?
think?
Oh, okay.
Lost confidence in Tony? Do you think that
it doesn't matter so much whether he's lost confidence in Tony? It matters if the play calling. If Matt Nagy and Andy Reid have lost confidence. Because if they haven't, they're still going to draw up plays where he'll be in the progression. Now, he probably won't be the first read in many of the progressions. I can promise you that. And the first read is very often, Travis Kelce, for reasons that I think we don't even have to discuss. But the second read is usually Rashee Rice with good reason, right? He's been very reliable, and I've been a fan of his since he was at Southern Methodist University. He's sort of like a poor man's Brandon Ayuk, a little bit larger even than Ayuk, but a guy who's really good after the catch, has strong hands, can catch the ball out away from the frame of his body, has really good body control, but not a terrific route runner, at least not yet. He doesn't create a lot of separation, at least not yet. But he's able to make a lot of contested catches. He did in college. He's doing it right now. Some people got down on him at the Senior Bowl because he wasn't able to create separation. I said he won't need it. And, of course, even better, he went to a situation where he has a tack driver accurate quarterback. So that minimizes the effect of him not creating a lot of separation. Like I said, he's a 211-pound guy, 6 feet and 7/8 of an inch, and runs hard after the catch. So he'll be able to create in that offense where run after the catch is so important because they do not throw the ball deep, right? People talk about Brock Purdy being a game manager. Brock Purdy's 9.9 adjusted yards per attempt. Like, that's crazy numbers. That's Mad Bomber Daryl LaMonica numbers. The game manager is Patrick LaVon Mahomes, who's several yards per attempt behind Brock Purdy. It's funny how people allow their perceptions to color the reality. The reality is that that's a guy who's a game manager right now. He's throwing shorter passes than ever before in his entire career. And despite that, his completion percentage is also at the lowest it's been since he was a rookie. And he only played one game that year. But that's because, at least in part, they lead the league in drops. It's not just Tony, though Tony's had a lot of drops. It's time for them to go back to Justin Watson, who has reliable hands, has size, 222-pounder, who runs 4.41. Once again, another terrific, you guessed it, Ivy Leaguer, right, from Penn. Shout out to Ivy League wide receivers busting out in Week 16. I think that you're going to see more routes run by Justin Watson. I think they're going to also use Noah Gray, their other tight end, more than they usually do. And maybe even their third-string tight end, who is raw but a big, strong athlete who's good in the red zone. Watch for them to also throw to their running backs a great deal. Jerick McKinnon, hey, if you're stuck in a deep fantasy team, 16 to 20 team league, you're stuck for a flex, consider Jerick McKinnon.
Yeah. But Pacheco is back this week, supposedly. So
Yeah, so Pacheco's going to get most of the work in the running game, but McKinnon's a much better receiver.
Mr. Scott, what do you think about them Chiefs? You think that Mahomes? I don't, like I said, I don't know what game you were showed. You probably, I don't know if the Vikings came on at the same time, but what's your thoughts when you look at Tony's season, the drops? Do you think that Mahomes has lost his confidence in Tony?
Well, as I said earlier, Mahomes just hasn't looked, and the whole team, Kansas City, hasn't really looked like a confident juggernaut team that I expect them to look like. I like Bill's comment about, a guy like Jerick McKinnon, the former Viking, who's there. He's always healthy, he's ready to go, and he's going to be a good spark, and he's a great receiver. The Chiefs, well, I expected them to steamroll the New England. And they kind of just been toying with teams. They kind of just been – so, I mean, I don't know where the confidence factor is. I don't know. I always have to give the nod to Mr. Mahomes now this time of the season to really figure this thing out and play this thing out. So that's my take on Kansas City. I still think that they're – in that division right up there, and they're going to be a team to be reckoned with.
Don, what do you think?
I think it's all Taylor Swift's fault. Ever since they started showing her every game, the Chiefs have been playing up to their standards. So, yeah, it's the Swifties. No, all kidding aside, you're right. All kidding aside, the Chiefs are not as good as – they're not playing as good as we expect them to. Mahomes is still a great quarterback, but he was better when he had that Tyreek Hill guy to throw to. I think they lost a little bit of explosion when Tyreek went down south. Kelsey's dependable, but, I mean, he's dependable. He's also predictable. You know that's the guy that's going to get the ball. So, Chiefs have some things to solve, but I think they're still a dangerous team. I mean, they're still probably going to be in the go deep in the playoffs. So it'd be fun to watch them and the Ravens go at it. That'd be, I think that's our championship game.
What do you think there, Dave? I mean, Don just mentioned, the possibility of a Kansas City Chiefs Ravens championship. The difference here is that in most years, the Chiefs were at home. This year, it looks like they might have to go on the road.
Yeah.
What your thoughts
Well,
there, Dave?
Yeah. Well, number one, I just think Mahomes is angry. He's upset. He was yelling at the officials the other day when they called the guy that was offsides.
That was
Tony. Yeah,
that was Tony.
and so
how dare they call that?
I think he's just frustrated, and like people were saying, people were expecting a better product out of Kansas City. I think if Kansas City has to travel to Baltimore, they might be in for a long day. Baltimore has a pretty good defense, and like Don said, I think losing Tyreek Hill, that was a big blow. But with Tony, he's had 5 drops this year. That's the most that he's ever had in his career.
Yep.
And that's out of 38 targets. So that's a significant percentage of his targets that he's actually dropped. I think his rookie year, he only had 2 drops, and he had a lot more targets. So I could see where Mahomes is frustrated. Does that mean he's not going to throw the ball to him? No, they spread the ball around. The tight end is their primary target, but they got their running backs that they throw the ball to, and they're wide. I think they have 9 guys with 30 or more targets, so they'll spread it around. and I think that Mahomes will go back to him if needed. But he better not drop that ball. He better not have a 6 drop.
Dave, I'm going to stay with you here. The Saints quarterback, David Carr, throws 3 touchdowns in a rout of the Giants, 24-6. The Giants D welcomes Tommy DeVito with the team record 7 sacks. Dave, I'll let you talk about whichever you want, the success of the Saints or the downfall of the Giants.
Yeah, well, Tommy DeVito got a welcome to the NFL, but I think the Saints with David Carr, they're not in a strong conference, but now's their time to make a push for the playoffs. And if David Carr is on the mark, if he's going to be playing some solid ball, he hasn't been available all year. There's been different points during the year where he wasn't available, but now's the time for some consistent play in these last couple games to lock in on a playoff spot. But I believe that they still have to play the Bucks and the Falcons. So this is going to be really interesting. These next 3 games they're going to tell us what they have. And but I think for the Saints, it's fortunate that they got David Carr in a quarterback. And if he can play consistently, then they might be in good shape. But then we'll be talking about Tampa Bay here in a second.
Mr. Scott, you want to talk about the Giants or you want to talk about the Saints?
Well,
talk about both.
Carr, I've always liked him, but as what's been said earlier, the consistency, that's the whole thing. I mean, since the Saints, since they lost Drew Brees, when you've had a quarterback that you can just put out there for all of those years, and with the quarterback and coach the same kind of continuity, I think they're kind of finding their way. But the Giants, again, like I was saying, with all these other quarterbacks, I mean, Giants with Danny DeVito, I mean, Dobbs, Mullen, all these guys in the middle of the year. I mean, you really just I've never seen anything quite like this, where the Wicked Pickett in Pittsburgh, he started out, seemed like he was going to be okay, but and then nobody talks about Pittsburgh with Tomlin. Is really past his use by date. And I don't understand why that there's not much conversation about that. But
because they've had 3 quarterbacks play poorly all season, I think is probably the reason.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know where you put the blame on all the quarterbacks that have been this carousel that we're seeing now of quarterbacks that are kind of coming out of the woodwork, and all of a sudden they have to play.
And that's all over the league. I looked it up. There's been 73 quarterbacks that have had at least 1 passing attempt this year.
Which is a record. Yeah, that is the record.
I mean, I can understand the last game of the year when people are putting in, they've locked up a spot, and so then they'll start their backup quarterback. But we still got 3 games, and a lot of teams still eligible. So 73 quarterbacks, that's a lot of quarterbacks.
Yeah, and then you look at the Vikings during the Cousins era, he's played every snap. He's played every snap except he missed a COVID game, I think, a year or 2 ago. But until this year when he had the Achilles, he's played every snap. There's never been even a backup to come in and take nothing. Big lead. Of course, they haven't really had big leads. They've been 1-score games, and that might.
And the same is true of Justin Herbert. He's played through broken ribs. He's played through until this broken finger on his throwing hand. He'd been an absolute Iron Man since he became a surprise starter due to the punctured lung of Tyrod Taylor. He wasn't expected to start as a rookie, but of course, Dr. Needle said otherwise. But that's another team that had every single snap basically taken by their starter until this year.
Let's see, Don, what's your thoughts here on David Carr or?
No, let's talk about David. Let's talk about Derek.
Derek, I'm sorry. Well, we talked about Danny DeVito, so we can talk about.
We did talk about Danny DeVito and David Carr. So I was like, wait, is this a new like mismatched buddy comedy starring David Carr and Danny DeVito?
So go ahead, Don. What do you think? Derek Carr throws the 3 TDs, but the Giants haven't scored 2 touchdowns this year.
Yeah, the Giants just aren't very good. I mean, the Saints aren't gangbusters either, but it's sometimes you get teams that are like subpar. Sometimes you get good games, you know. But yeah, Carr he's a survivor. I mean, he's been in the league for several years, and he's always been pretty competent. But you'd be hard picked to win a game when you give up 7 sacks. That's not going to happen. So, your quarterback can't throw when he's on his ass, and so that's a surefire.
Yeah, we've seen that with Mullins, yeah.
But yeah, it was one of those games that I didn't get to really watch it because they're not in my viewing area, but I did watch some highlights. And good job, Carr. We had to have some success.
Donna, I want to talk about one of the guys that you have been a very vocal voice for, and that's Baker Mayfield. He threw for 381 yards and 4 TDs. The Bucks keep pace in a heated NFC South race, where I believe the two leaders are 7-7.
The number one fantasy QB that week was Baker Reagan Mayfield, baby. Embrace Tampa Baker Mayfield.
The Bucks were 30. They beat the Packers 34-20. Bringing their record to 7-7. Don, who's your one and done in this division, or do you think this division has the chance to do more than that?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if I can answer that, but go back to Baker Mayfield. He's getting a second wind. Sometimes you see this happen with quarterbacks where people start writing them off, and all of a sudden they start catching on fire. Again, my generation growing up, the guy named Jim Plunkett, won a Super Bowl when he was toward the end of his career. I mean, he'd been kind of written off as well,
and more recently, Geno Smith.
Yeah, Geno Smith. Yeah, I didn't know he was still in the league until I saw him play earlier this year. So, yeah, how's that? But yeah, so Baker Mayfield, he's the glue keeping the Bucks together, I think. If he continues that type of play, I think you'll see them possibly sneak in on that first place. So we'll see.
What's your thoughts on Baker Mayfield, Mr. Scott?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I just kind of wonder if what Cleveland is thinking, when they've traded the whole team for Mr. Massage, and he hasn't played and gave him the biggest bag of bags, and he's clearly not even the guy he was before he was signed. And so I think with the Bucks, Evans, Goodwin, I think in that division they could make a little bit of noise. And down into the future, if he's still a young guy, was pretty touted coming out of school. So yeah, I'm liking what I see in that division for Baker Mayfield.
Bill, is Baker the one-eyed man in the land of the blind?
Well, And, once again, another victory for analytics. So Mr. Scott will be excited about that. If you analyze his collegiate career, he ends up grading out in the top 3 percentile of his position even once you adjust for era. So he's at the other end of the spectrum from someone like Josh Allen, who's in like the bottom, but close to the bottom, like bottom, not bottom through, like bottom like 36 percentile for Allen once you era adjusted production. So everything data-wise tells you that he should have been good as an NFL starter. And, of course, set rookie records. He still holds all the rookie records, many rookie records for the entire NFL, and all the rookie records for the Browns in terms of quarterback play. So when you look at him as a player, you look at guys like Case Keenum, even guys like Brock Purdy, who's sort of at the top of the food chain of that type of quarterback, is as long as they don't try to do too much, these guys are able to thrive. We just talked recently about, certain quarterbacks being perceived differently from other quarterbacks. And when Baker is perceived correctly, he is able to be very effective. Now, it helps that he's in a great situation. And shout out to Sean Canales, right? Somebody who actually sees him accurately as a play designer and play caller and plays to his strengths, unlike Kevin Stefanski, who is not a bad coach, but he wants something different. He needs something different from what Baker was able to provide. Baker is a terrific ball handler. He has quickness. He's a competitive runner, is how I'd call it. Not a super athlete, as we found out when he got chased down by the police, but a good enough athlete. And his arm, while not elite, is well above average. He can make virtually every throw that you'll need a quarterback to make. The thing is, when he doesn't start getting into the hero ball thing, once again, like Josh Allen. Now, the difference with Josh Allen is the super talent who's able to get away with it at times, and Baker's not. But as long as he, as you talk about, sort of keeps the ball in the fairway, avoids going for too much, and realizes who his best players are. Mike Evans, who is a terrific, should be a Hall of Famer, terrific player, is having, look it up, one of his best seasons ever in his entire career. Why? Because Baker Mayfield realizes, I don't have a better player on this team than Mike Evans, right? He's not saying, he is spraying the ball around, but he also realizes who the best player is, who's the mismatch on almost every play. It's Mike Evans. So he's had great rapport with Mike Evans, even better, really, than Brady to some extent, right? Because Brady was more comfortable with the middle of the field. While, terrific at it. Maybe the best middle of the field thrower the game's ever seen might have been Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. But Baker is hammering people on those deep comebacks. He's killing you on those back shoulder throws, those deep fades to the back shoulder. He's killing people with it to Mike Evans. So he knows where he should go with the ball. He's at a point in his career where he knows what he can and can't get away with. And he's in a great situation with a good play designer and a good play caller. Shout out to Canales, and Mr. Dave Canales is going to be an NFL head coach somewhere, probably sooner rather than later.
Dave, what's your thoughts on Baker? He has great rapport with his tight end, Cade Odom. We've seen that in the fact that Cade caught a game-winning TD from him. But a lot of us had kind of written Baker off. What's your thoughts there, Dave?
Well, where he proved something to me was his last season in Cleveland. When he was hurt, he was in a brace.
Yep.
He couldn't throw with a full throwing motion. He could have legitimately said, I'm done, and gotten surgery on the shoulder. It wasn't his throwing shoulder, but the opposite. But he did not have a full throwing motion. And what he's a competitor. He is very, very competitive. And that has never left him. And so, he went to Carolina, then he went out to the West Coast. And, now he's with Tampa Bay. And maybe the situation here is right for him. And we're going to see this in 2 weeks whenever Tampa Bay plays New Orleans head to head. And I had mentioned Derek Carr, kind of this, and the Saints preparing for their playoff run. Well, who's in their way is Tampa Bay. And if it were if it were Baker Mayfield or Derek Carr, I'd rather have Baker Mayfield. That's who I would want as my quarterback. And so I think that they play Jacksonville, then to New Orleans, which is a big one. Then they finish the season against Carolina. So it seems kind of favorable for them. And they've already beat New Orleans, earlier in the season. So I what I like about Baker is his competitiveness and his willingness and what Cleveland did to him. I just can't. I don't understand that. I really don't understand it. But we'll see what happens over the next few weeks.
Yes, we will. Mr. Scott, the Seahawks stunned the Eagles 20-17. I'm pretty sure if we go back and look at our picks for last week, no one picked the Seahawks to win, but I believe it was Dave that picked the under. I think so. I'd have to go back and look, but I'm pretty sure it was Dave that picked the under. Anyway, the Seahawks wide receiver, Jason Najigba, catches a game-winning throw from Drew Lock of all quarterbacks. What did you think about that game, Mr. Scott? Were you able to watch it?
I did see some of that game, and the Eagles, to me, are kind of joining the Cowboys as, teams you thought that they are not who you thought they were kind of teams. I've seen chinks in their armor. I mean, I've loved their defense. The quarterback's good. But then Drew Lock, who is, like I say, he's joined the rest of the Ritters, the Dobbs, the Mullinses, the Wicked Picketts, the Danny DeVitos, as this thing has just continued on. And for them to lose for Philly, I think that's a bad loss. I think that's a very bad loss. Even though Seahawks, they have been resilient. And I don't know if I have to give it to Pete Carroll for that. Probably so. But they have been resilient with Geno Smith, another one who he's still, he's in that same group of mobsters that I've been mentioning, of quarterbacks that have come out of nowhere in the middle of the season to do jobs that you never thought they could do. So I think that was a very bad loss for the Eagles, and I think it pretends. I think they can be vulnerable come playoffs. I mean, I thought they were in a real driver's seat. But they're kind of getting like the Cowboys to me, where they rise high and then all of a sudden here's a loss to here's Lennox Lewis losing to Hassan Rahman. I mean, it's one of those kind of losses.
Oh, Don, what's your thoughts here? Seahawks beating the Eagles.
That was, to me, that was a shock. The Eagles have now lost 2 in a row and something like 3 of the last 4. I think I'm correct. The Eagles are kind of playing, they're like the NFC version of the Chiefs right now, where, you had all these expectations and they are not quite, last few weeks haven't quite met them. So Eagles they're still a great team. Don't get me wrong. They're going to be okay. They'll go to the playoffs, but I don't know if they fully recovered from the ass whipping Dallas put on them. They seem to still be kind of punch drunk from that. But yeah, Pete Carroll, he put together a pretty good game plan, and they were able to eke it out. And so hats off to the Seahawks.
Bill, what did you think of that game? You also picked the Eagles to win that game last week.
Well, if it was straight up, but I don't think I picked them with the spread. I have to go back to what the spread was. Was the spread 5.5 on that?
I think it's 5.
5. Okay. Yeah, I would have picked them straight up. I think I said they wouldn't cover because I think I had them winning that game by 4. But the bigger issue is more The Dallas game was just a team that had played 3 games in 13 days against good teams. The Bills, 49ers, Dallas. The concerning loss is a loss against the 49ers because of how they lost to the 49ers. They got beat up and pushed around. Dallas was just taking advantage of a team that was at the end of, a really tough stretch. This is the first game they played on full rest in a month. So this is concerning in that they lost on full rest to a team that was inferior. The other 3 teams that they played were either equal or in the case of 49ers, a superior football team. That's the only team they faced where you could tell that team is clearly better than them, right? They didn't give the game to the 49ers. The 49ers took the game from them. The other 2 games, they made mistakes and did things that allowed the other team to be around. Also in this game, they made mistakes that allowed the other team to be around them. But the thing that really stands out, it's clear to me that that Jalen Hurts is not 100% healthy. And you could see that on certain plays. He's not running with the same speed and power that he did when he was healthy. And he's lost a lot of his deep ball accuracy. Last year and early in this season, he was one of the best deep ball throwers, particularly A.J. Brown, but in all of the NFL. So those things clearly have, to some extent, deserted him. And I believe he's not 100%. They've taken him off the injury report before that knee, but I'm 100% sure that his knee is not 100%. That much I can tell you. Other things that were somewhat concerning, they have a lot of depth. That's one of the great things about the Eagles team. But you could see some of their older players are starting to look like older players, and which is to be expected. It's late in the season. I still expect them to be a tough out in the playoffs. They have a lot of that championship pedigree and mental toughness and whatever that you want to look for. But you can see that, like I said, the 49ers game is one that beat them up. No offense to Don, but the Cowboys are a really good football team, but they don't beat you up, right? I mean, they sack your quarterback. But
we'll talk about the Cowboys a little later down the line, Bill.
But the 49ers is the game that I think is the thing that sort of exposed them and actually, sort of led to them struggling, some of the struggles we're seeing, not so much the Dallas game, because that was more about them just being tired as a team and not playing well. While they played pretty well in terms of effort level against the 49ers, this 49ers is a better team.
We'll talk about the 49ers next also. So, Dave, what was your take on this Seahawks-Eagles game?
Well, I was expecting the Eagles to bounce back, and they did not, and that was a surprise. Now, fortunately for the Eagles, they finished the season playing the Giants twice, with Arizona sandwiched in between those 2 games. So they're kind of in they should be in cruise control. Let's see how they look against the Giants. But I think the Eagles to lose these games in the way Bill was describing, I watched some of that 49ers game, and the 49ers and that was in Philadelphia, just humiliated them.
Yeah.
As far as Seattle, hey, maybe they win the next 3 games: Tennessee, Pittsburgh, and Arizona, and none of those 3 teams there, I think, should be able to beat Seattle with what they have. Now, what I really liked about seeing in Seattle, you had Drew Lock, but then they showed Geno Smith, I think, on the sideline
Celebrating with them. And to me, that indicates, hey, he wasn't off in the corner sulking or anything like this. He was right in there. And so it sounds like this team is in it to win it. So let's see. I think that they're going to need to win these next 3 games.
Okay. I'm going to stay with you here, Dave. The 49ers running back Christian McCaffrey scores 3 touchdowns as the team wins its 6th straight. They clinched the NFC West with a 45-29 rout of division opponent Cardinals. The 49ers quarterback Purdy says that McCaffrey should be the MVP. What's your thoughts on that, Dave?
Yeah, why not? You know, it's been a while. The last running back to win, I think, and in fact, the last non-quarterback to be the MVP was Adrian Peterson back in 2012.
Yep.
He gained over 2,000 yards and had 13 touchdowns. Now you take Christian McCaffrey. He has 20 touchdowns, 13 on the ground and 70 in the air, and he has three more games to play.
Catches passes.
And plus his passing yardage. He has over 500 yards of passing yardage and almost 13 yards of rushing. And if he's helping San Francisco toward a championship, hey, why not? I mean, I think he's been a big part of this 49ers. You know, he's been a big part of their success.
What do you
I'd
think?
like to see it. I would love to see it. A non-quarterback in it.
What do you think there, Mr. Scott? You know, we were talking about a lot of people were talking about Brock Purdy being the MVP, but what do you think, McCaffrey for MVP?
You know, McCaffrey, I was kind of down on him because of the injury kind of, but boy, this year, I mean, I think it's hands down. He's the best back in the league. And if he continues on like this, San Francisco is the best team in the league. And for Mr. Irrelevant to come out and do the things that he's doing, you know, I think they shouldn't even call him that anymore. I think that's just taking the guard off other people. I mean, this guy is playing at an all-pro caliber. The team is. So, yeah, I could see McCaffrey. I mean, I think he's the best back in the league, hands down, so far this year. As he stays healthy, I think he's a great candidate for MVP.
Yeah, and I just want to add, I think that it's a great piece of leadership from Purdy to say, hey, not me.
Yeah.
Give it to somebody else. I like that.
I'm not the one, but I can take you to the one. That's something another man said from another book. So.
Yeah, go ahead, Don.
Yep.
Don, what do you think? McCaffrey for MVP?
There's a good case for McCaffrey being MVP. Brock Purdy could very well be the guy too. I guess it depends on who the voters are. If the voters are running back centric or quarterback centric, but to be honest, McCaffrey, Purdy, MVP, there's not a wrong choice on that. So I don't know. I would hate to be a voter on that because I think both guys are definitely in a running, and I throw I have a brain fart. Lamar, quarterback, Ravens. I throw him in there as well. So those three would be great.
Oh, okay. Mr. Scott, the Rams quarterback Matt Stafford throws two TDs, and the Rams keep their playoff hopes alive with the 28-20 victory over the Commanders. Mr. Scott, do you consider the Rams contenders or pretenders?
Boy, it's hard to tell with the win over the Commanders because the Commanders just have been kind of a mess. But I still think Stafford is a very good quarterback. And, you know, as long as they're still in it, which they are, yeah, I think they're contenders. I really do. I think that they can keep their group together. I think they are contenders. But it's hard to just go off the win over the Commanders because I just think the Commanders just seem to be in disarray.
What do you think there, Dave? The Rams do have some weapons. Coop, the young rookie, Nakua, kind of running back by committee, but what do you think there? Contenders or pretenders, Dave?
Well, this is kind of interesting. You have so many 7-7 teams. Teams, right around 500. With this extra wild card spot. So it's keeping a lot more teams viable. They play the Saints, right? And then they'll finish with the 49ers at the end of the year. But hopefully what they're going to need to do is they're going to need to win the next 2 games and just hope that the 49ers are sitting their starters. I think that's the biggest thing in their way. It's just interesting that, hey, you're 7-7. We're in week 15, and we got a bunch of teams that are in the hunt. And Matt Stafford's not a bad quarterback. So, whoever if they were to make the playoffs, it would be interesting to see who they would end up being matched up against.
What do you think, Don? What do you think about those Rams? Contenders or pretenders?
I'm gonna have to throw the label pretenders at this time. I'm not sold on them like I was a few years ago. I think that they're going to make a kind of a push, but they beat Washington, and so it's like, okay, next. I'm a big Matt Stafford fan. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't. I don't see the Rams having enough firepower, in the final weeks to make it in the playoffs. So I'm going to say they're pretenders right now.
Don, let's talk about that Cowboys game. The Bills beat the Cowboys 31-10.
Yep.
Running back James Cook had 25 carries for 175 yards and a TD. I'm not sure, which is the real Bills team, but I'm not really sure what's the real Cowboys team either. So far, they've only beat one team with a winning record. Don, what's up with them Cowboys?
Well, they went to Buffalo following, they're hungover from that win against Philly. One of the excuses was that they had a stomach bug break out among the team, and that half of them were taking Pepto-Bismol to keep from having the Hershey squirts. So that was an excuse I heard. Buffalo just went out and kicked their ass. Sometimes that happens. You just get your ass kicked and you got to deal with it. So Dallas is used to playing in that dome stadium and climate control. They go to Buffalo where it's sleet and rain. 30 degrees, wind blowing out off the lake. So yeah, sometimes like the Russians found out, sometimes general winter is another opponent you have to deal with. So Cowboys, again, I want to cheer for them, and I do, but I'm also a realist. I'm kind of like we're talking about the Falcons earlier. You got to be a realist. You're a homer, but you got to be a realist. So Cowboys are, they're going to win some games. They'll get in the playoffs, and then they'll run into San Francisco or Philadelphia. Philadelphia will probably beat them in the rebound game, and then it's back to, well, wait till next year. That'll be the mantra again.
Mr. Scott, what do you think? That was a pretty, like Don said, that was a pretty good old-fashioned ass whooping there, 31-10 over the Cowboys. What was your thoughts?
Yeah, I didn't think they'd get beat like that. I mean, I thought the Cowboys were a better team. The Bills had not been really playing that great, and they hadn't looked that good. Dallas coming off a big win. So I was messed up my board big time that Dallas didn't win that game. So, but and then going forward, I don't know how I can really trust Dallas when it gets into the playoff area. They seem to be able to to get these nondescript teams and they can do fine, get knockouts. So it's hard for me to trust them.
Dave.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised. Everybody's expressing surprise. Isn't it December? I mean, all season long, I was hearing, well, wait until December and the Cowboys are going to fold. And they went up to Buffalo and got trampled. Next week, I think it's another away game, but should be warmer. They'll be down in Miami. That'll be another good test. And but the Bills, it's kind of like, wow. I mean, at the beginning of the year, I thought that they were going to be a really strong team, and then I was kind of writing them off. Right now, they're not in the playoff picture. They're not. If the season were to end today, they wouldn't be in the playoffs, but they're 8-6, and so they need to win their next couple games, and I think that they realize that they're in these last 4 games, now 3 games. We're going over last week's games, but teams should be really focused on this in terms of those that are in the playoff hunt. And Buffalo stood up. Now I'm just going to be wondering, are we going to see that same Bills team next week? It'll be interesting.
Stand with you, Dave. The Fins running back Raheem Mostert and quarterback Tua Tagliabue led the Fins to a 30-0 shutout of the Jets without Tyreek. Running back Mostert scored 2 touchdowns to set the Fins' single-season record of 20 TDs, and there's still 3 games left to go. The Jets were eliminated from the playoffs for the 13th season. Dave, are the Fins still considered a one-trick pony, Tyreek or bust?
Yeah, I think the Dolphins are kind of a model of what the NFL wants. They want like a big offense and not necessarily a smash mouth defense. And because the NFL doesn't want to get their offensive weapons hurt, and so I think that the Dolphins are kind of like the model child of what the NFL is envisioning for the future. They got a tough schedule coming up. They got Dallas, then Baltimore, then Buffalo. That's a heck of a way to finish the season. So we'll see how that works because you got a couple teams here that have some pretty good defenses. But hey, I'm impressed that they were still able to produce without Tyreek Hill, and which shows to me that hey, they got multiple weapons. So now the question is can other teams keep up with them?
Well, they've got a track team. Mostert ran. He was NCAA champion, I believe, in the 440.
No, he was the Big Ten 60 meters champ.
Was he okay? I know I know they have a track team there.
Speed kills.
And then you have the kid that's not playing. What's his name? Anche?
Well, Devin Shane's back. He played. He just didn't play as much, but he's back.
Yeah, and he runs even faster than Mostert.
He was an SEC sprint champion.
Yeah, and Jeff Wilson, who never hits the field, he was also a sprint champion, wasn't he, Bill?
No, he ran track in high school, but when he got to North Texas, he wasn't fast enough to really make an impact in track. But he's fast enough, but he's not as fast as the other guys we're talking about. The other guys we're talking about are like legitimate track guys. But they have a lot of team speed. They have just enough defense, and they have a very good secondary, which is basically what you're building towards nowadays.
Do you agree with that, Mr. Scott?
I do. I think that AFC is going to come down to Miami and Baltimore. I mean, I think that's a matchup I would love to see. So the track, gentlemen, the speed. You put Tyreek out there. I mean, that's whew. Yeah, I'd love to see that game. I think it comes down to them two.
What do you think, Don? Miami and the Ravens?
I agree with Anthony. That's going to be. I think that will be the AFC. Just like so. Miami has so much speed. Something's got to give. But Baltimore, their defense is very salty. So again, it'll be a clash of the Titans and not the Tennessee Titans, of course, but just the regular Titans of Greek mythology. And so I'd probably give a slight edge to Miami because, like I said, speed kills. But I'm anticipating that game. I'm going to corn and get my diet soda and drink and watch.
Okay. Don, the Texans win without quarterback C.J. Stroud, beating the Titans 19-16 on kicker Kamia Farburn's 54-yard field goal in overtime. But the Texans D holds Titans running back Derrick Henry to 9 yards on 16 carries. Don, your thoughts?
That's pretty amazing, the fact that they did without C.J. Stroud, because usually, the Titans are very competitive when C.J. is under center, but they did with the backup, and the defense came through big time. So I'm going to tell you about the Texans. They are probably 2 years away with solid draft picks to being in the same conversation as Kansas City, as Miami, as Baltimore. They're turning it around quicker than people than people realize. So hopefully we'll see some more of that.
Bill, what was your thoughts? You always talk about Spears and fantasy, his fantasy value plus his value to the team, but he was held to less yards than Derek.
Less rushing yards. I think he had more receiving yards.
Yeah.
But the fact is that the book on Derrick Henry has always been get him within the first 2 steps. If you can get him at or behind the line of scrimmage, because it takes him a while to get up to speed. He's a very tall running back. He's the tallest starting running back since a guy named Roger Vick, who was drafted out of Texas A&M and started for the Jets for a very short amount of time, who was the only taller starting running back in the past, 50 years. So he's one of the tallest running backs we've seen, a little bit taller than Eric Dickerson. And so because of that, the second tallest right now is a guy named, he's not a starter, but Latavius Murray is the second tallest running back in the NFL. So because of that, it takes him a while to uncoil and get those legs going, get up to speed. So if you get into him early, that's been true since he was in high school. He's not that effective. Now, once he gets up to speed, it's like, taking a safe and letting it roll downhill. You're in trouble then. So that's the whole thing. Can you get to him early? If you make him chop his feet, or if you make him move laterally before he gets to the line of scrimmage, he's not the same guy. That's the book. It's always been. And I did see the Cowboys game coming against the Bills because I knew it would be the James Cook show. And what's the weakness of a team like the Cowboys has been the middle of that defense, especially who was out for that game? Jonathan Hankins, the one true run stopper in their entire 53-man roster. Once I knew Hankins was out, I knew how that game would turn out. But the matchups that you're talking about now, whether it be Miami versus Baltimore. Baltimore does have that interior defense. Now, they like to attack the edges. They have a good secondary, but not an elite secondary anymore. right? They used to have an elite secondary, but Ed Reed isn't walking through that door. So I'm fascinated to see if they can generate enough pass rush and also enough traffic, right? Because Tua Tagovailoa is a shade under 6 feet tall, left-handed, and throws sometimes about 3/4 over, not always over the top, about 3/4 a lot of time. That means that there'll be a fair number of balls to be batted down if you get your hands up. That'll be one of the keys to a game if it does come down to the Ravens versus Miami. And the Texans. I once again, I talked about this preseason. I had Atlanta on my list as I thought be one of the most improved defenses in football, and of course also the Texans. Why? Well, DeMeco Ryans. I mean, DeMeco Ryans. Like it's not a hard thing to answer. DeMeco Ryans is a brilliant defensive mind. They have a solid approach to offense, and once they get Nico Collins back, and you already mentioned Coleridge Bernard Stroud Jr., when they get a full complement, and Nathaniel Tank Dell, right? If they get a full complement back there, they draft a good running back in the upcoming draft. They build that offensive line, get a true mismatched pass rusher to go with Anderson, right? So Anderson gives you your number one. They need a number two to go with him. Yeah, they'll be a very dangerous team. It may not take 2 years, Don. They might be a double-digit win team next year. They might be a 10 or 11 team win next year.
Bill, I'm going to stay with you here. The Clowns quarterback, Joe Flacco. Yes, I said Joe Flacco. Overcomes 3 interceptions.
Yep.
And throws 3 TDs.
Yep.
The Clowns keep their playoffs hope alive with the 20-17 victory over the Bears. Flacco throws for 374 yards, 217 in the fourth quarter.
Yep.
To set up a game-winning field goal. 217 in the fourth quarter.
Yep. Remember we used to have the whole "is Flacco elite" discussion back in the day. Here's what I will say about Joe Flacco. He doesn't play scared, right? Especially now. He's playing basically with the house's money. He's already been sort of almost involuntarily retired. Remember this guy on October 31st, Halloween, was handing out candy, right? He was at home, with his kids. I mean, this has all happened very, very, very quickly for him. Now, luckily, he's a veteran. Doesn't take him long, to get ramped up and figure things out. So in the last, 5-6 weeks, he's gone from being a stay-at-home dad to a very effective NFL quarterback. Now, the one bugaboo, even for him at his best years, was he will put the ball in jeopardy, in danger. But he's developed a really good relationship with Amari Cooper already. And in fact, he has a better rapport with David Njoku than any of the other Colts quarterbacks, including Deshaun Watson. Njoku's always been a guy that we talk about talent, but he never put it together until the last few weeks. And one of the reasons we've finally seen David Njoku show up is that, once again, he grows up essentially as a Raven. Who do the Ravens love to throw to? Who drafted him, right? A Hall of Fame tight end, Ozzie Newsome, drafted Flacco out of Delaware. And so he's understood. It's been driven into his head the value of tight ends in the passing game from the time he entered the league. So anytime you see Flacco as a starter, you might want to grab whoever the number 1 tight end and maybe the number 2 tight end. Harrison Bryant has showed up even since Flacco's showed up. So, once again, if you're in a deep fantasy league and you're desperate, look whoever's playing tight end for a Flacco-led offense.
Yeah, I picked up the Joker last week, so I'm one of those. I was lucky he was available. But anyway, Mr. Scott, what do you think about those clowns there? Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco is as old as Ben Franklin. At least he's been collecting them for a while.
Well, to me, that's, Stefanski, I still say he should have been the Vikings coach. I like Stefanski. And I think that move of getting Flacco is almost a classic Denny Green move when he went and got Cunningham, who was laying tile in Las Vegas, to come in and turn into be the MVP. So I think it's a great move. I think Cleveland can sneak into this thing. They're going to have to sneak in. And the big thing with them, again, is what do they do with Mr. Massage? I think Mr. Massage is done. I don't think he wants to play anymore.
Well, it doesn't matter. He's under
He's got-
contract.
yeah,
They can't afford to
got
move him. And they can't afford to
he's
move
got
Well,
a
yeah, they've got to
guarantee.
pay him. Of course, they have to
Yeah.
pay him. But I'm just saying, as far as on the field, he's not going to. I mean, he doesn't even seem like he's the quarterback that he was.
I'm with you, Mr. Scott. He doesn't seem to me like he wants to play, but when you got that money in the bank, then you don't really. Do you have to play? It's guaranteed.
Well, as B.B. King said, it's hard to sing the blues when you're doing okay.
Well, hey, what was that Marvin Hagler said? It's hard to be a champion when you're sleeping on silk sheets. But Don, what's your thoughts here?
On Flacco?
On Flacco and the Clowns keeping their playoff hopes alive? Is it Joe or bust? What's your
So
thoughts?
that big fourth quarter Flacco had, it's called shaking off the rust. I've always been a Flacco fan. Again, the fact that he is back in the league is amazing. That I mean, his kids are in high school, aren't they? I mean, he's not a young guy, but
No, he's not.
Might be in college. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but Flacco was. He was always the one thing about Flacco. He was always a competitor. He would always compete. Wasn't afraid to. He's like a poor man's Brett Favre in some ways, I think, because he would go to Gunslinger mode every so often. But I think if he continues to shake off that rust, I think the Browns will make a push. I don't know if they have enough energy, but hey, what a way to enter the league with that kind of comeback.
Dave.
Well, we got a typical Flacco performance: 3 interceptions, 3 touchdowns, and but with the Browns, right now they're in the top position in terms of the wild card teams, and it's defense for them. They're going to ride on their defense. They're going to be playing the Texans next. If C.J. Stroud plays, it should be interesting. If he doesn't play, I would think that should give the Browns a significant edge. And then after that, then they have the Jets. And so then, if their final game is important, that would be against the Bengals, who's also right behind them in the wild card seeding. So you got 3 AFC North teams right now that would be in the playoffs. The thing with Flacco is these teams, they got to get him moving. If you let him sit back there, he's going to tear you apart. And he'll still throw an interception or two, but you need to get him moving off of his platform. And I don't think he's that good when he's passing on the move. At least the games that I've watched him play. Anyway.
Bill, the Radbirds clinch an AFC playoff spot. Quarterback Lamar Jackson leads them to their 4th consecutive victory with a 24-7 victory over the Jaguars. Bill, are the Jaguars who we thought they were, or you can pick your poison here? You can talk about the Jaguars, or you can talk about the Ratbirds, Bill.
Well, when you say who they thought they were, I was a person that always said they weren't as good as people thought they were. I said at the preseason, I said people are too far over their skis. The exact phrase I used was people are too far out over their skis about the Jaguars. The exact phrase I used preseason. I said they're a 10 or 11 win team, and I wouldn't be shocked if they got knocked immediately out of the playoffs by a wild card team. Not surprised one teeny tiny bit. Are they the class of the South? Yes, but just barely. The Colts are going to be breathing down their necks. That's another team that's one good draft away from being right there with them. And remember, they're doing this as so many other teams are doing with a backup quarterback, right? Another guy who's in that Case Keenum, Baker Reagan Mayfield, that sort of mix of starter / very high value backup quarterback. So hang around the league for 13, 14 years and make a decent amount of money. And you can win games with, as is being proven by the fact that the Colts are still in the mix to make the playoffs. So I never was as sold on the Jaguars as everyone else. I said this from jump, that they are not as good as people thought they were. The Ravens, of course, at the other end of the spectrum. The Ravens have a legitimate chance to win the Super Bowl.
Ooh, Super Bowl.
Whatever happened to Nick Foles?
I mean, nothing. He's a backup quarterback. That's what he is. I mean, he got hot the same way that Eli Manning got hot twice. Guys can get hot. Doesn't mean that they're great.
Well, Mr. Scott, what's your thoughts here? Everybody was talking about the golden boy, Trevor Lawrence, and how he was going to be the savior for the Jags. So what's your thoughts here? Are you going with Bill, or did you already know that the Ravens were going to make the playoffs?
Well, yeah, I think the Ravens are going to make the playoffs. I mean, the Jags, that quarterback was overrated to me, and I think that's been proven out during the course of the year.
Don?
About Jacksonville?
You can talk about Jacksonville, or you can talk about the Ravens. Either one. Pick your poison.
Well, I'll start with the Ravens because I just think that Lamar Jackson is, I remember a couple of years ago we talked about, is he going to be able to finish the season? Is he going to, have some bad luck, get hurt, get injured, miss games? Was he dependable? And he's now, playing like he did when he first entered the league. To me, he's another contender for the MVP along with Purdy and McCaffrey. But they're looking very, very good. I think that like we were talking about, I think it'll come down to Miami. Now, as far as the Jags go, here's a team that I had some expectations for, with Trevor Lawrence and his ability, but sometimes you just gotta surround yourself. It's kind of like the Spurs with Wemby. You got a great player, there's no support. Now, Trevor Lawrence, sometimes he lacks that mobility, and that hurts because he finds himself getting sacked quite a bit. I think they need to shore up that offensive line, and they've got to play some defense. So, it's going to be a long road for Jags, but I think the Ravens are in the pole position right now.
Dave.
Yeah, the Ravens are. I mean, right now, I would put them right there at the top of the AFC. Now, what's going to be interesting is they got to play the 49ers, and then the week after, then they play Miami, which could be a preview of the playoffs. And I think Lamar Jackson, by him staying healthy, and that's the key. You got to stay healthy, and it's kind of like with Tua from the Dolphins. Same thing with Lamar Jackson. He stayed healthy this season. They've adjusted their offense so that now he's actually been in the pocket throwing, and his accuracy is showing through. People used to say that he can't throw a long ball, but then when you look at the advanced statistics, he actually in the past wasn't too bad with his long passes.
Right. His actual struggles were like swing passes. If you actually break down his charting, he struggled on short to intermediate sometimes.
Right. Not the long passes,
but not the long
and
ball. Never has been bad at that. He's always been good at that.
People would ding him on that, and now that he's being able to sit down in the pocket, well, he's really they really have something there. So the next two games I think are going to be, those are big games. 49ers Ravens, Dolphins Ravens, and maybe you see this again in the playoffs, and then who knows how far they'll go, whether they would face the 49ers again. As far as the Jags are concerned, they may very well make the playoffs. I mean, just because of their season, I think them in Indianapolis, they may swap positions where Jacksonville becomes a wild card. Maybe Indianapolis becomes a champion. We'll see, but I don't see them going very far in the playoffs.
Mr. Scott, you might want to mute your microphone here because I'm getting ready to talk about the Steelers. And you say that I'm always soft on the Steelers. But, Dave, I got some questions for you. Big Ben said that Kenny is the answer, but he points to the O-line and the absence of weapons. But wasn't Big Ben the one that admitted that he didn't want to mentor Kenny Pickett? So as far as I'm concerned, he should probably shut the fuck up. But, that's just the way it goes. Anyway, I asked this question last week, Dave, and you weren't here. Is it time for a quarterback coaching change, or is it time to look for Kenny's successor? Kenny Pickens, has an attitude problem. Is it cancerous in the locker room?
Oh, George Pickens.
Is it time to part ways with him like we did AB? Is it time for Jalen Warren to move up to RB1? What about Kazi's suspension, Dave? Dave, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, there's a lot, and it's not good. That they've really Chernobyl. Just a couple weeks ago, they were in a position to really take advantage. They were 7-4, and they had what we thought were going to be two games that they should be able to win against Arizona and New England. They lost both of those to drop to 7-6, and then they went up against the Colts. Now they're 7-7, 3 games in a row. I'll answer your questions in turn. First, the thing with Big Ben. Actually, Big Ben brought out the perfect point. The offensive line has been atrocious. Now, I'm not a big pro football focus, but it does give you a comparison to other offensive lines. And the Pittsburgh's offensive line is right near the bottom. And it was supposed to be an upgrade, and they've been performing horribly. As far as Big Ben, I think he's saying things that Ike Taylor has said, Trey Essex has said, Ryan Clark has said, Troy Polamalu has said, but Ben gets the criticism, not all these other guys. And the thing is Kenny Pickett has been on Ben Roethlisberger's show this season. And he does have a relationship with Kenny Pickett.
Now he has a relationship with him now.
Yeah, and
he had that relationship when he stayed 2 years too goddamn long.
Well, I mean, again, you could argue that, but then if he had left earlier, you wouldn't have Kenny Pickett. So that kind of takes us to the next question, because if Big Ben had retired earlier, well, then Kenny Pickett would not be the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. In terms of coaching changes or looking for Kenny's successor, the Steelers are going to take their time evaluating him. They're not done with the evaluation of Kenny Pickett. And in the games that he completed, where he started and completed, they were 7-2 this year.
But
Unfortunately, he's been.
Here's the thing, though, Dave. I don't want a guy that can be a good comeback quarterback in the fourth quarter. What about a guy that can get us ahead?
Well, again, the reason the Steelers are going to he's going to be the starting quarterback in 2024. And at the end of 2024 is when the Steelers are going to make a decision. And the way that you're going to be able to tell what they're doing, they're not going to make a public announcement. But number one, do they give him a new deal? Do they give him a new contract, new multi-year contract? If they do, that means that they've decided that Kenny is their franchise quarterback. If they give him, if they don't give him a 5th-year extension, then they basically are cutting bait with him. If they give him a 5th-year extension, it can mean either, hey, this is a prove-it deal, or they're getting ready to transition to a new quarterback. But the thing for Kenny is and they're still playing under the Matt Canada playbook, which,
Right.
Again, they fired Matt Canada, but they can't just reinvent a whole new playbook. They're still using the same playbook that they installed during training camp. And so I think, Ben Roethlisberger had a problem with it. Mitch Trubisky had a problem with it. We're going to see if Mason Rudolph has a problem with it. Kenny Pickett struggled with it. I think what the Steelers want to do is to get a new coordinator and to see how Kenny Pickett performs under that new coordinator in 2024, and then they'll make a decision. Now, I just one bit of trivia that just amazes me. I did an article on all of the former head coaches, offensive coordinators, and defensive coordinators for the Steelers. Right now, Eddie Faulkner is the interim offensive coordinator. If they hire him as the full-time offensive coordinator, he'll be the 3rd offensive coordinator in a row whose first and only NFL coaching experience was with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yep.
That has got to change. That they have to change. They've got to hire outside. Your next question about Pickens, George Pickens. This is really, really, and it brings into question: has Mike Tomlin lost the locker room? And there's even, I saw a film clip of practice where George Pickens is going half. You see the other wide receivers doing a drill, and they're running it fast. He's going at like 3/4 speed.
Yep.
He on the the one play, he didn't block his guy who was in on the tackle, preventing Jaylen Warren from scoring a touchdown. And then his explanation was, I didn't want to put myself in a position of getting injured. Then Mike Tomlin had said that he had a meeting with George Pickens. This is before the Colts game, which then this week on Tuesday, George Pickens denied. He said, no, I didn't meet with Mike Tomlin. So there's a bit of a problem. Now, Mike Tomlin did his weekly press conference on Monday. Uncharacteristically, he came back out, I think it was today, and he has publicly defended George Pickens. Now, he did say that George has some maturity issues. There's things that they need to work on, but he backed him up. He said he will be playing against the Bengals. And that was an uncharacteristic move. Most Steeler fans, they feel that George Pickens should be benched at a minimum. And Mike Tomlin is standing up for him, which I find kind of amazing, considering that basically George Pickens had just called Mike Tomlin a liar. Because on Monday, he's saying, or last week, he was saying he met with George Pickens, and Pickens is saying it never happened. Pretty interesting. So my view, if it were me, I'd be benching the guy. we'll see whether, Mike Tomlin, he has a history of working with some very difficult personalities. Antonio Brown, Bill Belichick couldn't do anything with him. Tampa Bay couldn't do anything with him. The Raiders couldn't do anything with him. Mike Tomlin had 6 years where he was a consistent All-Pro player.
Yep.
You look at Todd Haley. He was the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, was fired. He spent 6 years as the offensive coordinator, one of the more successful offensive coordinators in Pittsburgh. And then after 1 year in Cleveland, he couldn't get a job in the NFL. Mike Tomlin is a very, very good coach. And now it kind of comes to the next question is, should they part ways with Mike Tomlin? I don't think that's going to happen. He has a contract through 2024. And if anything, we're probably going to hear that the Steelers are going to extend him. Now, that these next 3 games could change that if they lose out. Your next question, is it time for Jaylen Warren to move to running back 1? They've basically been a tandem. They've been running them as A and B, and they've been getting about the same amount of carries. And I think that Pittsburgh is happy with the way that rotation is going. So, and I don't see them really changing that much. KZ's suspension, to me, was unwarranted. I think that there's a big problem with the NFL. The NFL players are making plays on the field that are not being flagged, and then they're being fined after the fact. And it turns out that DeMonte Kazee had 4 or 5 prior fines, but all but 1 were rescinded.
Yep.
But they used those fines in order to justify their indefinite suspension of him.
You remember
I think it's just wrong.
You remember we talked about that subject early a few shows ago about the NFL, fining players, even though it might not be a public fine, but
Right.
and keeping track of those.
To me, the only time that they should be fining a player without a penalty flag, if it's a non-play incident, a fight on the sidelines, something. And actually, the official that threw him out of the game, they have clips of him in his dirty play when he was a player, and he was one of the dirtier players running around. And DeMonte Kazee didn't do anything. His only choice in the situation he was in would have been to allow Pittman to catch the ball and then tag him on the ground. In other words, touch football.
Yeah. Well, like I said, football has changed a whole lot since the majority of us have played.
So sorry to go on for so long, but you had a lot of questions. And to sum it up, I mean, Pittsburgh stinks. I mean, they're not a good football team, this year. And actually, you could say that they overperformed. How did they get so many wins?
Yep.
Yeah.
But then you keep skirting around the issue of Mike Tomlin. I mean,
Mike Tomlin's not a general manager.
But he's being treated like he's a Supreme Court justice. Like this is a lifetime position for him.
Well, how many coaches have the Steelers had in your lifetime, Mr. Scott?
Well, I mean, 15, 16 years, isn't that enough?
Well, hey,
what's enough?
Well, here's the question, Mr. Scott. Who are you going to get that's better?
Yeah,
that's the better question.
His contract is up next year, 2024. Right. So we'll see what happens then. But the Steelers, you're right. Getting a Steelers head coaching job is almost like getting a Supreme Court justice, except you just don't get the Clarence Thomas benefits.
The last 2 head coaches never coached in the NFL again. So Chuck Noll and Bill Cowher, when they retired, they were done with football.
And I would dare say the same thing about Mike Tomlin. I
He's
believe
pretty young, though. He's still. I mean, isn't he in
Well,
his 50s?
he was hired at about the same age as both Chuck Noll and Bill Cowher.
And Cowher, huh?
And now, Anthony, to your point, if you were to poll Pittsburgh Steelers fans, I would say the majority would agree with you. But the Rooney family, Art Rooney II and his father before him, they don't follow what the polls or what the fans say that they want. That's not the way they operate. So I would be surprised if they lose these next 3 games. Maybe we'll get surprised, but I don't think so.
Okay. All right, gentlemen. Well, let's run through our schedule for this week. We got a lot of games because of the Christmas weekend. So let's go tomorrow night. Dave, the Saints getting 4 from the Rams, and the over/under is 45.5.
I'm going with Derek Carr, and I'll take the over.
Okay, Saturday afternoon, the Bungles giving the Steelers 1.5, and the over/under is 37. Dave,
I'm taking the under, and unfortunately, I'm taking the Bungles.
okay. I'm not sure with no Jamar Chase, and we might luck up and get that 8th win, Dave, but we'll see. I'm gonna, of course, go with the Steelers, and I'm gonna take the under here. Mr. Scott, what's your thoughts? Saints +4 against the Rams. The over/under is 45.5.
Yeah, I like the Rams, but the Saints are actually getting the 4 points.
Yes, sir.
Boy, that makes it.
But they're playing at the Rams.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Rams in the over.
Okay. The Bungles giving the Steelers 1.5, and the over/under being 37. Mr. Scott.
Boy, I guess I just have to take the Steelers by a reflex. I mean, it's just over the. Just until I see that they're actually out, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to take the under.
Okay. The Bills giving the Chargers 10.5 points, Mr. Scott, and the over/under is 44.
And it's at the Chargers?
And it's at the Chargers.
Yeah, I'll take, I'll take the Chargers in those points. And,
as a matter of fact, it's 10.5. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take those points, and then I'll take the over.
Okay. Let's see. Christmas Eve morning, Mr. Scott, the Lions giving your Vikings 3, and the over/under is 47.
Oh man,
I really wish Demetrius was here now. Jeez, where is he at? Demetrius, where are you? Call him. Where's Waldo?
Oh boy, I am. These Vikings. I tell you, from last year to this year, if they win, it's always a 1-score game. I mean, it always comes down to some kind of field goals or something dramatic at the end of the game. And then I'm going to just take them at home. And I'm going to take the over, because I think Flores' defense, the way he blitzes, is going to give Jared Goff some problems.
Okay, Dave, the Bills giving the Chargers 10.5. Over/under is 44.
Like Anthony, I'm taking the Chargers in the over.
Okay. And what about the Vikings against the Lions. The Lions are giving the Vikings 3, and the over-under is 47.
Unlike Anthony, I'm taking the Lions, but I will take the over.
Okay. The Packers. The Packers getting 5 from the Panthers, and the over-under is 36.5. Dave?
Well, I'm banking on the Panthers are trying to lock in that number 1 draft pick. So I'm going to take the Packers in the under.
Okay. The Colts and the Falcons. It's a pick 'em.
I'm going to take the Colts in the under.
Let's see. The Clowns plus 2.5. Playing the Texans, and the over-under is 42.5. Dave?
Yeah, the question is whether C.J. Stroud is going to be playing. I don't know yet, but I'm still going to take the Browns in the under.
Okay. These odds, I believe, are based on CJ not playing as of now. We don't know what's going to happen. These change, of course, before game time. But Mr. Scott, Packers giving the Panthers, getting 5 from the Panthers, and the over-under is 36.5.
Yeah, I'll take the Packers, and I hate taking. I don't like taking unders. I'm going to take it over. 36 is low enough that could scoot over somehow.
Okay. The Colts against the Falcons, over-under is 44.5.
Boy, I just take the Falcons because they're at home,
Okay.
and they are at home, right?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll take them, and I'll take the under.
Okay. The Clowns getting 2.5 from the Texans, Mr. Scott, and the over-under is 42.5.
I'm gonna stick with the Browns in the over.
Okay. The Seahawks giving the Titans 2.5. The over-under is 42.
Well, I'll take the Seahawks, and I'll take the under.
Okay. Let's see. Where did we leave off here, Dave? The Colts and the Falcons?
I think my next one is the Seahawks
Packers
and
and
Titans.
is it the Colts and the Falcons or the
No,
Packers?
I did those two.
Okay.
The next one should be the Seahawks and the Titans.
Okay. Seahawks and Titans.
Well, the Seahawks
they're giving the Titans 2.5.
Yeah. I'm going to get. It's a must-win game. They're going to win the next 3 games, and between now and then, I believe that Derrick Henry is going to be turning 30, which is a dangerous year for a running back. So I'm going to say Seahawks in the over.
Okay. The Commanders getting. Let's see. The Commanders plus 3 versus the Jets, and the over-under is
37.5, I think.
Yeah, 37.5.
Wow. What a.
Yeah, it's a bad game.
I'm wondering if the Commanders coach is going to be fired at the end of the season. I'm going to take the Jets in the under in that game.
Okay. And the Jaguars getting -1 at the Bucks, Dave, and the over-under is 43.5.
I'm going to take the Bucks and another under.
Oh, okay. So let's see, Mr. Scott, that brings you to the Commanders +3 against the Jets, and the over/under is 37.5.
Gosh, well, it's off the real board. It's off, but I would take the Jets. Is that the Jets, right?
Right.
Wait a minute. Let me get rid of this.
Call from the wireless cow.
Boy, I don't like either team. I guess I would take the Commanders in the over.
Okay, the Jaguars against the Bucks, and the over/under is 43.5.
I'll take the Bucks. I'll take the Bucks in the over.
Okay. The Cowboys getting 1.5, playing the Dolphins, and the over/under is 51.
Oh man. I'm taking Miami in the over. I mean, I just think Miami, Dallas too up and down. Just too, even though they've got a great record, I think they have a good team. I like Dak, but taking Miami in the over.
Okay. Dave, Jags, Bucks.
I think I already did that. I took the Bucks in the under.
Okay, then you're on the Cowboys getting 1.5 from the Fins.
Yeah, I think both of these teams are capable of scoring. So I'm going to take the over, and I'm going to pick the Dolphins as the home team.
Okay. The Cards getting 4 from the Bears, and the over/under is 44.5, Dave.
I'm going to go with the home team again with the Bears and the over.
Okay. Sunday night, the Pats getting 6.5 versus the Broncos, and the over/under is 34, Dave.
I think the Broncos are going to win, but I'm going to take the Patriots in the points. I think it might be a defensive battle, so I'll take the under.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Scott, the Cardinals and the Bears. Cardinals getting 4 points. The over/under is 44.5.
Yeah, I'll take the Bears in the over.
Sunday night, the Patriots getting 6.5 versus the Broncos, and the over/under is 34.
Boy, I'll take New England in the points, and at 34 I have to go over. I just think that's fumbles, interceptions. 34 can happen.
Okay. Mr. Scott, some Christmas Day football here. Monday morning, we had the Raiders. They're getting 10 versus the Chiefs, and the over/under is 41.5.
Raiders. Oh, I'll take the Chiefs, and I'll take the over.
Okay. Christmas afternoon, 1:33, we had the Giants getting 11.5 against the Eagles, and the over/under is 43.
Boy. Well, the Eagles have to show they're for real. I mean, the Giants are not. I'm going to give up the points and take the Eagles.
Oh,
and
okay.
I'll go with the under.
Oh, okay. Now, the game that we've all been waiting for, Christmas night or Christmas Eve or Christmas evening, whatever you want to call it, 5:15. We had the Ratbirds getting 5, playing the 49ers, and the over-under is 46.5.
Mm. Mm. Well, I'll have to take the 49ers and the over.
Okay. All right. Well, as always, Mr. Scott, glad to have you around. Sorry that your nemesis is in here, but why don't you give us your final thoughts for the evening there? And we very much appreciate having you. Tell us about your book and where we can find it, and anything else that's happening up there in Minneapolis.
Well, what's really happening up here now is, this time of year, 45, 50 degrees, going out and doing a little barbecuing. This time of year, it's no snow. I mean, I know that's making a lot of people upset, but I'm very gleeful. I enjoy it with much glee, with no snow and ice, and not too much going on. Just looking for a quiet, holiday. The great Gophers are going back to the bowl, Motor City Bowl in the great city of Detroit. I'm sure Demetrius will probably be there in the front row. Other than that, like I say, just looking forward to, the grandkids and enjoying some football coming into the new year.
Well, hey, thank you so much, Mr. Scott. Dave, let's get your final predictions here. We are on, let's see, are we on Christmas Day or Sunday night?
Christmas Day.
Okay, Christmas Day, the Raiders getting 10 from the Chiefs. Over under is 41.5.
Man, that's a lot of points, but I'm still going to take the Chiefs in the over.
Okay. I don't think the Raiders are going to score 63. Don't think the Chiefs are either. But I'm going to take the Chiefs and the over. Giants getting 11 from the Eagles, and the over-under is 43.
This is an important game for the Eagles, but it's an AFC or NFC East game. I'm going to take the Giants in the points. I think the Eagles are going to win, but I'm going to take the Giants in the points, and I'll take the over.
And Monday night, the Ratbirds getting 5 at the 49ers, and the over-under is 46.5.
Wow. This should be a good game. And the 49ers have been playing they've been playing AFC North football, and they've done it to a couple. They did it to the Steelers. I'm going to take the 49ers in this game, and I'm going to take the under. And we'll see how the Ravens fare against them. But that's what I'm going with.
Your final thoughts, Dave?
Yeah, two quick things. I got an early Christmas gift from Dave Bryan and Alex Kazora of Steelers Depot. So they sent me, I don't know if you can see this, Tomlin, The Soul of a Football Coach by John Harris, with the forward by Tony Dungy. And I heard the interview. Dave and Alex had interviewed John Harris, and he did not interview Mike Tomlin for this book, but he did have access to Mike Tomlin's brother. And, and one of the things that John Harris had kind of commented on during the interview, in terms of, well, Mike Tomlin, once he leaves coaching, does he want to go on to TV or whatever? Because he's, very, very well-spoken man. But what John Harris said is, talking to his brother and everything, Mike Tomlin just loves coaching. he is just a coach, and that's what he's always wanted to be, and that's what he's going to continue to do. So I'm looking forward to getting more detail. It's quite a thick volume, so I want to learn more about Mike Tomlin. And I think it's important for these coaches, whether he stays in Pittsburgh or not, and for the players. I was kind of dissing George Pickens earlier, but I think it's important that we learn as much as we can about them, where they came from, and how they became to where they're at today, to be, to give a little bit of understanding. So, with Christmas coming on, I just hope that everybody has a joyful Christmas with family and friends. And then for those that might frustrate you, that always happens no matter what. Try, even when we're driving, just kind of think back. Well, why is that person doing what they're doing? And if you were to look into their past, you may understand where they are today. So, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody.
Bill, I'm going to kind of run through this with you before we get your final thoughts. Bengals giving the Steelers 1.5, over under is 37.
I think it's over, and I think inexplicably the Steelers find a way to win that game, probably on defense, because probably that's how they're going to win any other games they win this year. So, look for a defensive touchdown.
Okay, Cowboys getting 1.5 from the Finns, and the over-under is 51.
I'll take the over again. After a year of unders, I think this might be the week of overs. I think that it's going to take 52 points to win that game. I think, and this is in Miami, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Give me Miami.
Let's see some other ones here. Lions giving the Packers 3, and the over/under is 47.
I will again take the over. I will take the Lions, and I think they cover the 3. I think they win by 4.
Okay, the Christmas Day games, Bill. The Raiders getting 10 from the Chiefs, and the over/under is 41.5.
I'll take the over. The Chiefs will win, but not by 10. The newly competitive Las Vegas Raiders will, be a team that doesn't win a lot of games, but they're not going to get blown out anymore. Their days of getting blown out have ended with the arrival of Champ Kelly as their interim GM and their interim coach, Antonio Pierce.
Okay, the Giants getting 11.5 versus the Eagles, and the over/under is 43.
Again, I'll take the over. It's a get-right game for the Eagles. I think the Eagles start to look once again like the team we thought they would, especially on defense. People have obviously been critical of Jalen Hurts, but somebody, I think it was Don, who was giving the intentional, the flu excuse or whatever. Well, that Jalen Hurts was bedridden until 2 days before he played that game. So if you believe that flu, and I can see how flu would certainly play into something. If you believe that flu matters, assuming he is feeling better, I think he'll be better. But more importantly, I think the Eagles defense will be much better. And while Tommy Cutlets will have his moments, he's, like I said, I that's a miss for me. I saw DeVito both in his times at Syracuse and his time at Illinois. Apparently he likes blue and orange together, and didn't think much of him. But he has worked hard. He's improved. Shout out to Sean, his agent, who I met at the combine. But it won't be enough. That team has really been decimated. Speaking of teams that have been decimated by injury, between free agency and injury, the Giants have lost a lot of their best players. So I just think it won't be.
And finally, the Ratbirds getting 5, playing the 49ers at the 49ers, and the over/under is 46.5.
Again, I'll take the over. I think that there is a gap between those teams, but it's not a 5-point gap. Watch for the Ravens to hang really tough all the way through that game because these teams are built somewhat similarly, except that while their quarterbacks are sort of diametrically opposed in their approach to playing football in terms of their strengths and weaknesses. One guy is the ultimate medium, like intermediate distance thrower ever. That's sort of the place, middle of the field and intermediate distance thrower who can occasionally hit you deep outside the numbers. We have one guy who's a master of hitting you deep outside the numbers who occasionally struggles with the short to intermediate game. And obviously Lamar is, one of the most athletic quarterbacks of all time. And while Brock Purdy is sort of in that Baker, Reagan, Mayfield mold as like a thickly built kid who can hurt you sometimes, that's not really the best part of his game. But I truly believe the difference will be the two defenses and really the pass rush. The Ravens pass rush is, aspiring to be what the 49ers pass rush is. And I think that'll be the difference. That they'll consistently make Lamar set his feet and reset his feet and move around and things like that. And that offensive line, Ronnie Stanley may never be right again, right? Daniel Falele is enormous, but not super athletic and will struggle with speed rushers. Guys like Chase Young, guys like Bosa will give him the fuck. And then the interior, look at the interior of that defense. They have Javon Hargraves, who the Steelers should never let go. They can bring Eric Armstead at you. They just have so much depth of talent on that defensive line, and that'll be the difference. But not 5 points difference. I think that 4 points is probably what they might squeak out. I'm thinking that's like a 30-24 game, so that makes it an over. And who's next?
That's it for Christmas games. I'm actually thinking that the 49ers get at least 5 sacks. And I'm really looking for this game to be another Cowboys fiasco. But we'll see. I think the 49ers...
Those teams are so different from each other. I don't think so. The weakness of the Cowboys, the strength of Ravens. Like they're completely different teams. The Cowboys really want to really like hit you deep. Like they're a deep passing attack team. They not always have been, but a lot of different versions of the Cowboys want to throw the ball deep, and then they want to pound you. But when they pound you in the running game, it's not just like between the tackles. They're really looking to attack like off guard, off tackle, and then cutback lanes. While the Ravens hit you with a lot of different types of runs, but they kept some of that Greg Roman stuff. They hit you with counters. They hit you with power and demo. They want to move people on the inside.
34-17, 49ers.
Wow. Okay. I'll be shocked if it's that. The Ravens are a team that's really hard to get that many, to get that far up on them. They stay close to almost everybody, even when they lose. But if you're right, I will definitely tip my hat to you. I don't see them as a kind of team that gets blown out by anybody from this point forward. They're playing really well on both sides. They're the only team in the NFL, in fact, that's top 5, both in terms of scoring offense and scoring defense.
Well,
I
have no faith in the Raiders secondary whatsoever. I think Christian McCaffrey goes over 150 yards combined, passing and rushing.
I believe that. I do believe. I don't think anybody can hold McCaffrey 150 yards combined because that's just 75 and 75. He might get that in the first half.
Yeah,
I just think that they'll do a good job against most other teams.
And I also think that this will be Ayuk's game to shine rather than Debo's. But we'll see. Final thoughts, Bill?
I think you're right about that. I think that Kittle and Debo will be held under control. I think Ayuk and McCaffrey will go off. But I also think they're going to force at least one fumble. Might be from Debo, might be from somebody. They'll bust up. They're good at punching the ball out. And I think that they are going to slow the game down at times as well. I just think that they're going to hang around. Like they're a hard team to blow out.
If they, I don't think that if the 49ers let them hang around, then they might beat the 49ers. But I think the 49ers will establish it early, and the Ravens will be playing from behind. But final thoughts, Bill?
Sure. So as we come to this time of year, right, and this is a time of year that, you know, Happy Hanukkah, which started actually a few days ago, actually, a little over a week ago. But to those who celebrate, obviously, Happy Hanukkah. You know, whether you celebrate Diwali, whether you celebrate Christmas, whether you celebrate Kwanzaa, a combination of the above, Festivus for the rest of us. In this time where we're hopefully spending time with our families and remembering, all the things that are dear to us and near to us. James and I are veterans, and this is a tough time for a lot of people, but sometimes particularly for veterans. As many of you know, we lose on average almost 24 veterans to suicide per week in our country, and that's a terrifying number, an incredibly terrifying number. And this is a tough time, mental health wise, for a lot of people, but particularly for people that feel isolated outside society and alone. So if you do have someone in your life, in your family, whether it be a veteran or not, who this time of year is not the best for them, check on them, right? Check on your people, whether it be a phone call, an email, a direct message, a text, a drive by their house. Check on people who don't have the best time during this important, difficult time of year, because we can all make it, but we can't make it alone. None of us, right? People use terms like self-made man. There's no such thing, right? Never will be, never has been. All of us have made it because of help and guidance and inspiration that we received from somebody, whether it be a family member, a friend, a mentor, maybe it's someone we saw on television. But all of us are here because we've gotten something from someone else. Be that staff of support, be that light in the darkness for somebody in this holiday season.
Well, hey guys, thank you so much. Look forward to talking to everybody next year. Right now, I'm thinking January, either January 3rd or January 10th. I will let everyone know. Thank you so much. Be safe. Enjoy holiday with your family and friends. And we thank you so much for all of your contributions to the Sports Crib.
Very enjoyable. Hopefully, Bill and his analytics is going to come into the new year with a very great record using analytics, with his prognostications using analytics, and then hopefully next year I can enlighten you a little bit more on the rap game. I've been doing a lot of research on that, and I'm going to expose the rap game for what it is.
What about Christian? What about Christian rap, Mr. Scott?
Are you a fan of Lecrae?
No, that has nothing to do with it. I'm a fan of it very much. Well, we can get to this in the next year, gentlemen. I still see
next year, right? Leave them wanting more, James. Leave them wanting more. But Anthony gave us what's called in the business a tease, James.
We're not going to run out of topics, that's for sure.
All right,
Dave, Bill, Anthony. I'll see you guys next year, man. It's been fun. Be safe over the holidays, everybody.
Everybody, yes, please.
Best to everybody. Yeah.
Take care.
You guys.